The regular city council meeting for August 21st, 2019. Madam, roll call.
Mayor Ronnie Felder,
Here.
Chairperson Kashamba Miller Anderson,
Present.
Chair Pro Tem Julia Botel.
Here.
Councilperson Trodrick McCoy.
Here.
Councilperson Shirley Lanier. Councilperson Douglas Lawson.
Here.
City Manager Jonathan Evans.
Present.
City Clerk Claudine Anthony is present. City Attorney Don Nguyen. Here. You may proceed.
Walter, is the television on? It's on, okay. We'll have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilwoman Lanier.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Members of the public shall be given a total of 3 minutes to speak on all items listed on the consent agenda. In no event will anyone be allowed to submit a comment card and speak on a consent agenda item after the adoption of the agenda. Do we have any additions, deletions, or substitutions?
No, Madam Chair, we do not.
Any disclosures by council?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
so we don't have any, because I have the agenda that I printed yesterday, so we don't have any deletions?
We deleted it prior to this particular meeting. We removed item 9 and 10, and that was concerning the health insurance program.
Okay, so when we put the agenda, put the items on the agenda, we may not want to delete it off of Novus because sometimes we print them ahead. So we want to leave them on there, and then when we get to the meeting, we can just say those items have been deleted, but we'll leave them on there, and so that the agendas match. So,
Follow up.
yes.
Can we move the legislative update up? Because I see it said it's behind some,
It's number 3,
It's immediately following the
right after
consent.
consent.
okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so back to the agenda, hold on. So 9 and 10 are no longer on here, is what we're saying?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
But 6, 7, and 8 are the same numbers as what we're going to go through.
That is correct, Madam Chair. Items 9 and 10 that have been removed from the agenda will be discussed as part of your special meeting on Monday. Assuming the board approves moving forward with the special meeting to discuss health insurance immediately following your budget workshop on Monday.
All right, so can we have a motion to adopt the agenda with items 9 and 10 deleted?
So moved.
Second.
Councilperson Lawson.
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier. Yes. Councilperson McCoy.
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel.
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
All matters listed under the consent item are considered to be routine, and action will be taken by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a councilperson so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Do we have any councilpersons that would like to remove the 1 or 2 items from the consent agenda? All right, can we have a motion to
So
adopt
moved.
the consent agenda?
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Lawson.
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier. Councilperson McCoy.
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel.
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Any unfinished business?
None.
Petitions and communications for filing?
Madam Chair, the Office of the City Clerks needs an authorization to publish the notice for the proposed budget workshop on August 26th at 6:00 p.m., as well as the special city council meeting to immediately follow.
All right, you need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Madam Chair, can we follow up later in the meeting on that? Because we may have an additional item to add to the special meeting agenda
Yeah, and if you do, you can just
Oh, we
announce it
said
at the end
later at the end, correct? I would prefer,
for her to hold off on this part?
yes.
Okay.
Okay?
You want to remove your motion?
Oh, I removed my motion.
All right. Anything else?
No, Madam Chair.
Awards and presentations? Item number 3?
Legislative update presented by Pittman Law Group. Madam Chair, we do not have any public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
All right. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening,
Madam Chair, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, council people, thank you for having us here today. And this time of year, I always have to learn how to work a doggone PowerPoint. And I never learn. That's why Attorney Henderson is here, so that I can do what I do best and just talk. Thank y'all for having us. And my partner, Ron Book, is on his way from Miami. He got caught in traffic, so he may end up coming towards the end of the presentation. He's loud, so we'll hear him as he's walking up the stairs. So I did watch when our able members of the delegation was here a few weeks ago and given a presentation. And so we won't sort of duplicate what they did. I thought they did a very good job and overview of what they're facing, which is a little bit different than what we face. What they're asked to do, which is a little bit different than what we're asked to do. And somewhere in the middle, those ships cross, and we're able to represent you and your interests, and to a great extent, we're fairly successful every year, and we appreciate the help that you provide. My name's Sean Pittman. Attorney Jasmine Henderson's here. Ron Book is on the way. And we appreciate the opportunity to represent Riviera Beach. Obviously, for those who know me, know this representation is fairly personal for me, having grown up down the street in what was called Broadmoor Apartments and attending John F. Kennedy and Suncoast High School. I should say as a part of the two-time state championship Suncoast High School Chargers. Some of y'all too young to remember that. Some of y'all too old to remember that. But very, very proud of that history. We're going to do a lot happened this year. So we could be here all night and there are other things for you to do. But we're going to try to get through some of the high points of what happened this year. And then we're going to close it off with forecasting what we think will happen next year and Mr. Manager, what we think we should be thinking about as a community in drawing dollars down and putting up a fight for some things that may be troubling to us. But the first thing I want to talk about is, am I doing the slides? What do I do?
You could just use that clicker right there.
This thing here? No? This thing right here?
Yes, sir.
Wait,
That working?
no?
Go ahead.
Do this?
Yeah.
I got an iPhone, y'all. I do know how to do some stuff. You got it? Okay, I need the mic. Okay. So, just to talk a little bit, most of y'all read that $91 billion was allocated in the budget this year. That's about a 2.5 increase from last year, and it's about that is about $1.8 billion in an increase. $131 million was vetoed from that, and largely the governor's office suggested that their veto was based on where they thought local governments should be able to fund and handle those issues themselves. But you saw $34 billion in general revenue, $57 billion in trust funds, 121.5 million in tax relief, which we'll talk about in a minute. 3.4 billion in reserves. The governor this year made it his goal that this year the state would actually pass reserves, and he went to a lot of lengths to make that happen, and it did happen. So moving on to the next one, Riviera Beach got 100, and the legislators talked about this, $150,000 for the Riviera Beach Early Learning to Kindergarten Pilot Program, and some money from the Cultural Facilities Grant Program. The tax package that I talked about, here are some of the elements that was in the package. A 5-day back-to-school sales tax holiday, which happened earlier this month. The 7-day disaster preparedness holiday, which happened in May. A reduction to the sales tax on commercial leases from 5.7 to 5.5. tax release, which we'll talk about a little bit later as well as it relates to the budget, but for the agriculture industry impacted by Hurricane Michael. Affordable Housing Fund. The Affordable Housing Recovery Program provides money for eligible local governments affected by Hurricane Michael. So you can see $325 million in the housing fund, 200 million went to housing, 115 million actually went to recovery of Hurricane Michael, with 65 million to the housing recovery and 50 million to the rental recovery program. 4.46 million to ship, 31 million to sell. Obviously, that is much less than what happened last year, much less than what is supposed to happen, but much of that is because of the next line, and that is the 125 million that was swept from housing to general revenue. That's still a huge issue for local governments, is how we get the legislature to stop raiding, evading, invading, and taking any dollars from that trust fund. To talk specific about the Hurricane Relief Fund. So, which, by the way, the reason we're talking about that is because the Hurricane Relief Fund really took a lot out of the budget. And it's the reason why a lot of local governments didn't take a lot of money home, because this was what the legislature promised, and quite frankly, there was a lot to be said and a lot to be done as it relates to the damage that that Hurricane Michael caused. But in all, $1.9 billion, the emergency, the emergency funding, then the 220 million in projects, 115 million in affordable housing, 35 million in county and municipal roads, 14.2 million to the school districts, and various, and then the few various local projects. What number of slides? Right. So the economic development, you saw that Visit Florida, a lot of you read that Visit Florida took a major hit, in a $26 million decrease. $16 million went to Enterprise Florida. A couple of new items, the $40 million to Job Growth Grant Fund that actually is supervised by DEO and Enterprise Florida, but selected by the government, by the governor. These projects are allocated for workforce and infrastructure initiatives. So this is something, Mr. Manager, as we're thinking about workforce projects or infrastructure projects, these are grants that are eligible for a city like Riviera Beach, and in fact, most cities across the state. The Career Opportunities Grant Programs, you know, there's a huge movement to go back to apprenticeships. We've gone away from it, not just Florida, but across the country. We've gone away from apprenticeship programs. So $10 million went in to go to high schools, school district career centers, charter technical centers, Florida College System Institution, and other entities that are authorized early to do apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs. So that's a good one to keep in mind as well. For the environment, here are the numbers as it relates to dollars that came down from the budget to the environment. What I do want to sort of have stand out for you is the establishment of the Blue-Green Algae Task Force. And you've heard a lot over the last few years about this blue-green algae growing in key water bodies. So the legislature created this task force so that they could identify priority projects as it's based on scientific data that would provide meaningful reduction in nutrient reductions. And obviously, when we talk about key water bodies, we also have to worry about sort of the regulations involved in that. This task force will also make recommendations as it relates to state policy and regulations. So let's move on. In transportation, $5.7 billion to transportation work, to the work program, 55.9 million to the transportation disadvantage program. Now, the disadvantage program is defined as those who are unable to transport themselves. So it's not necessarily.
Stay to
Sorry.
the microphone.
Sorry, it's not necessarily an age thing, but if you qualify based on just the fact that you are unable to transport yourself to something important like a job, this would be a good program for you. We're going to move on. That's really a nutshell the budget. Obviously, you could talk about the budget all day long, but the budget continues to grow in this state. And more, I think the challenge for us, council, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, is to be creative about the type of programs that we go after, the dollars that we try to draw down. And you saw early that out of the whole budget, there was $500,000 that actually went to parks. So we get a lot of clients that want money to go to parks, but when that money's divvied up, it's very difficult. Doesn't mean that it's not worth it. It means you got to get creative and come up with things that are different from others. I'd like to go into some substantive legislation. Again, they passed a lot that local governments need to pay attention to. I'm going to ask Attorney Henderson to get us started on that, and then I'm going to pick up on a couple of substantive issues that I think we ought to talk about. Attorney Henderson.
Okay, good evening. We're going to start out with the CRA bill. So as some of you know, for several years, the legislature and some members have had issues with CRAs. Specifically, they're concerned about some that have used the money as kind of a slush fund for pet projects. So they were finally able to pass legislation this year that would create some ethics training requirements for CRAs. It would also require CRAs that were created by municipalities to give their budget to the county commission within 10 days after passage. The Communication Services Bill is a product of a national movement to integrate the 5G technology into communities. They did this by asking several states, and I think that Florida was the 21st state to pass legislation like this that would streamline the process for permitting for these small cell facilities, which is the small cell facilities that they put on light poles. And so they created some permitting requirements that would require a local government to approve the permit in a certain number of days. And it would prohibit them from creating a de facto moratorium on these. The next piece of legislation is much needed legislation for firefighters. So this would provide relief to firefighters who've been diagnosed with one of 21 designated cancers. It would entitle the firefighter to $25,000 of cash payment upon their initial diagnosis of cancer. And you can see that there's requirements that the firefighter must meet in order to receive this allocation. And it also requires for the firefighter to be reimbursed for any out-of-pocket deductibles or copays. Now, I know that this was kind of a controversial issue in the legislature, but it was championed by our CFO, Jimmy Petronis, and so it was pushed through via some compromise by the league in the last few days. Micro-mobility devices are basically electric scooters and bikes. There are new applications that have popped up around cities that allow users to open the app, to reserve a bike or a scooter, to take it out and then pay a fee. So this just created the framework for using those, a framework for local governments to follow. And it specifies that local governments are not prohibited from regulating these dockless bikes and scooters. The last piece of legislation that I'm going to cover is the community development and housing legislation. So this one really directed its legislation towards comprehensive plans and for development orders that are created from these comprehensive plans. And so it entitles the prevailing party to attorney fees in development lawsuits if they find and establish that a development order is within a local government's comprehensive plan. It also includes impact fee language, and this language was passed in two bills. It was passed in 7103 and 207, and it would prohibit a local government from collecting an impact fee before a permit is given. It also mandates time limits for a local development decision. So if somebody comes to get a development order, you have 30 days to respond to them to let them know if their application is full or if there are deficiencies. Then they have 30 days to correct any deficiencies, and then they'll have 90 days after that in order to issue a decision. Sean is going to highlight some more of these, but I just wanted to point out that all of these were included in the end of session report that we've done for you, and we want to give enough time to go over the forecasting for next year, so he's just going to hit some highlights.
Just hit the button, it works. Senate Bill 7068, a big bill that was the priority of the Senate President, Bill Galvano, and it creates the Multi-Use Corridor, or MCORS program. And the program is designed to advance construction on the regional corridors that will accommodate multiple modes of transportation and types of infrastructure. The three corridors that the bill focused on was Southwest Central Florida Connector, the Suncoast Connector, the Northern Turnpike Connector. This, I think the underlying goal of the legislation was to revitalize some rural communities and really to encourage job creation, and as it relates to sort of regional connectivity. So, vegetable gardens. This sounds like it's not an important thing, but it was quite important. It prohibits the county, the city, or other political subdivision of the states from regulating vegetable gardens on residential properties. So if you did that before, know that you can't do that again. It's an interesting thing, but you'll be surprised. I think Mr. McCoy knows some of the things that can be talked about up there quite a bit. This was one of them that took a lot of time. Impact fees. This one was a priority of developers to have uniformity in their impact fees. This bill does a lot. And Mr. Manager, I'm pretty sure the League of Cities has sent down sort of all the things that it does, but a couple of things that just wanted you to take heed to is it prohibits collecting impact fees before the issuance of a building permit. Codifies rationale nexus text, codifies. So now you actually have to have a reasonable connection between the need for additional capital facilities and the population growth generated by the project, and a reasonable connection between the expenditures of the funds collected from the impact fees and the benefit accruing to the subdivision project. That all has to happen now. So that's going to be fun. Next slide, Madam Attorney. This one, obviously, the legislature entitles a prevailing party, basically. So you're aware of this already, okay? So she's way ahead, but this is a change that's going to have a real impact. Obviously, there is some ways to remedy it if you're able to communicate it, that you're going to change the ordinance, as it says, 30 days before. But this is something that we all need to pay attention to.
Mr. Pittman,
Yeah.
Madam Chair, follow-up question.
Go ahead.
Can you go back for me?
Yeah.
Okay, challenging a local government ordinance as expressly preempted. So this only speaks to ordinances that are enacted? What about
Right.
any kind of rules or policies?
Well, it speaks to ordinances.
Specifically
this exact
ordinances.
language.
Okay. All right, that's it, thanks.
So government accountability, this one has a lot to do with where requiring the county, the city, and water management district to maintain certain budget documents on their website in specific terms. I'm not sure if you do that now. A lot of local governments do it already, and requiring local governments to maintain internal controls designed to prevent fraud and waste. I think what it's trying to do here is there are some local governments that are not doing this, that now they're all required to do it. And by the way, all of those were, you may have seen writings and recommendations by the Auditor General. Most of those came from the Auditor General, and most of them were actually adopted. ballot measures, House Bill 5, you heard a lot about House Bill 5, requires a referendum to levy a discretionary sales surtax held after January 1st, 2020 to be held in a general election. That's a little different than it has been in the past, but obviously it's another way for local government, for state government to get in your business and stop you from at least putting these on what they consider to be a time where the most people aren't voting. Revises regulations for collecting signatures for constitutional ballot initiative. I don't want to cross over that too fast because that is a sweeping change that really changes the way ballot initiatives will happen. And a lot of things, Amendment 4 would have been very, very difficult today than it was 2 years ago. And I want to go through just a couple things because it's the language, I see it almost as a cautionary measure to getting involved in this. The paid petition circulator must register with the Secretary of State and provide an affidavit with each form gathered that verifies under penalty and perjury that the petition was signed in the circulator's presence. You have to swear to that. The legislation also prescribes a $50 fine if the sponsor submits a petition more than 30 days after it was signed and increases for petitions not submitted. And I think that cost is $500 if you actually get a petition and you don't turn it back in. So it's not business as usual. This is a big deal, and those, everybody ought to know that and understand it because it's a new day. I'm going to skip the next one, self-explanatory. Let me go to private property. Well, you know about, Madam Attorney, you know about that. You now can't tell people they got to cut trees and stuff. You can't tell them what to do now. Senate Bill 7066, Election Administration. This is the bill that actually attempted to clarify the language of Amendment 4. Clarified language relating to the completion of all terms of a sentence to include restitution and court order fees and fines. It also, there was language in here to move the primary election day back. There was language to move the last day for voters to request vote by mail ballots from 6 to 10 days before an election. It allows supervisor to send out vote by mails ballots earlier. So this was a pretty controversial bill that you all read about quite a bit and thought you should know that, and it does more than that. There's a lot of other election things in it that you don't have to worry about because you don't legislate it. But even dealing with college campuses and early voting, you have to have adequate parking now. And I don't know if you guys know of college campus that has adequate parking. If you do, let me know about that one. But that is also in the bill. So that's some of the substantive legislation that we thought we would share with you. That we think is very important as we all move forward. Again, a lot was passed that Mr. Manager puts a lot of work on you. And I don't know, the distractions of your daily life and work. But there are a lot of things that are coming from Tallahassee, unfunded mandates, preemptions that I know you're aware of because I see you nodding. But we wanted to make sure that you're aware. I want to introduce my partner, Ron Book, who hails from his helicopter just landed outside. Traffic up there. And I've asked Attorney Book if he would talk about forecasting and what we ought to sort of focus on as a legislative body moving forward to the next session. Sure.
Sean, thank you very much. Mr. Manager, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, thank you very much for the opportunity and the continued opportunity to represent not just you, but your taxpayers. Sean and Jasmine have covered a lot of the substantive stuff that passed, but I want to take a minute or two before I give you some thoughts on where I think things are going. It could have been a whole lot worse. When Sean talks about mandates, I really talk about it in terms of preemption. When you think about where the legislature was headed over the last 3 years, Mr. Manager, the whole goal was to make your life miserable. The whole goal was to make it more difficult on your commission to operate. The notion of what home rule means is out the door. People thought that they had seen the worst of what was going to be laid on local governments when Richard Corcoran left the speakership to become now the Commissioner of Education. My response to folks that made those statements were, then you've never met Jose Oliva, the cigar maker. Because Jose Oliva, the cigar maker, thinks that local governments do nothing but take advantage of the taxpayers and the people, take away their money, take away their rights. And when Sean touched the issue of tree cutting, I mumbled to him, yeah, thank the people in the city of Pinecrest, because that's where that one came from. Speaker Oliva was incensed that in the city of Pinecrest, they didn't care what kind of tree you needed to move to build your home or to build on your property. They didn't care if it was an endangered species, a natural species, or any other kind of species. If you wanted to move a tree, a useless Melaleuca, pay the city $20,000 and you can remove the tree. They didn't want the people to mitigate off-site. They didn't want them to transplant it. They wanted them to, you want to move it? You take it out, throw it in the garbage, but you got to pay us $20,000. A bunch of us tried to get the city of Pinecrest to understand the problem 2 years ago. That's what you got out of it. When you looked at what they did with CRAs, they wanted to abolish CRAs. They had a gun to everybody's head. Much the way they have done away with enterprise zones, much the way they have done away with motion picture and television and broadcast incentives, much the way they wanted to abolish all of economic development funding, that is what they wanted to do. The speaker comes from a libertarian perspective. It's a what you see, what you get. When you think about whether we were talking about killing off CRAs, killing off red light cameras, killing off all of Visit Florida, all of Enterprise Florida, we saved the bulk of it. Yes, some bad things happened, but a whole lot worse was out there. I think you're going to see more of it. I think if you look at the bill that was litigated over the last 4 or 5 or 6 weeks between Miami-Dade County, the governor, the speaker, and the Senate president, Miami-Dade County's Expressway Authority, known as MDX, some members of the Dade delegation and the lieutenant governor decided they wanted to abolish MDX. They didn't care about their home rule charter. They cared about what they felt was taking advantage of the public on the tolls. So they abolished it. They decided to eliminate local government control of it and create a majority of appointments by the governor, the speaker, and Senate president, and give just a couple of appointments to the county. The county sued. Miami-Dade's home rule charter is different than any other charter in the state. It was a test. It was a test to see, would the courts read the Constitution, look at the Constitution, and preserve home rule? Judge Cooper, the circuit court judge, threw the legislation out last week. They will take an appeal. They will ask for an en banc. They're going to take an appeal to the First District Court of Appeal. They will take it to the Supreme Court. Although I am told the last 24 hours there have been a lot of negotiations to attempt to work it out. But what legislature is going to do is they're going to come back and they're going to say, okay, Miami-Dade County, we didn't get your expressway authority, but now we're going to get your airport. Now we're going to get your seaport. And oh, by the way, we're going to put a constitutional amendment on the ballot to start trimming by the Constitution your home rule authority. And that is what is playing. So when people think it's all over now, Mr. Manager, Mr. Mayor, commissioners, they're coming at local governments with every single gun and every single hand grenade they've got. They think what you should do is go cut ribbons, put a hard hat on and do groundbreakings and have a really good day. Because remember, it wasn't but a few years ago they tried to take away your occupational license taxes as well. They didn't think you should have those business licenses on people's doors to be sure what people were doing within the zoning categories should be allowed to do. They don't think, and remember, there were a number of property rights bills out there this year as well. So let me stop on what they didn't do that they could have done and what I think they're going to do subsequently, and just take a minute or two on the budget. So as you heard Sean and Jasmine tell you, the legislature passed a $91.2 billion budget. Governor vetoed just barely over $100 million in projects. There were debating points of view within the office as to how much he should veto and not. There were those in the office that thought he should veto only 25 or 50 million. Would have been better for a lot of people, but he vetoed 123. Last week, the revenue estimators met, and they came up with a brand new budget projection on available revenues. I think it's no secret that we have had a significant economic slowdown. I don't believe we're in a recession, but I think everybody would agree we're in a very serious slowdown. 860 million less is the estimate of what they've got coming in over this 2-year period. On top of that, the Indian Compact, they're not paying in anymore. No more money going into escrow accounts. No more money coming in at all. That's another $340 million. What the legislature did, because Washington failed the people of Florida, is they sent almost $1 billion to the Panhandle. So think about the budget, $91.2 billion. $1 billion of it went to the Panhandle because Washington chose to ignore the needs of our state. People think that the problem with Michael was really confined to the area east of Pensacola in Escambia County and west of Tallahassee. And I'm here to tell you that when the state has to throw $1 billion of their revenue into taking care of a community or a set of communities in our state, everybody else suffers. And anybody that thinks that water projects that we normally get an allocation statewide north of 125 million, well, when that was pared down to be south of 60 in total, that doesn't have an impact on South Florida and Treasure Coast cities, they're mistaken. When people think that you sweep 75 million or more in Sadowski Act trust funds to send over to the Panhandle, and that doesn't get shared for affordable housing, workforce housing for the rest of the state, that doesn't have an impact on places like Riviera Beach, they would be mistaken. And that is what occurred. So now I'm going to get that $1 billion back so that we can reallocate it in what we would have hoped would be a $92.5 billion budget next year. That money just got sucked right out the door with the 860 million or so less in revenues coming in, plus the 340 million or so in Indian gaming compacts. Now, does that mean the world's going to come to an end? Here's what we know this morning. The Commissioner of Education presented to the Education Commission a proposed legislative budget that would increase the base student allocation for the second year in a row by some meaningful amount. Now, some would say that it's not as meaningful as I think it is, that if you went back a year ago, when we came home from Tallahassee, the base student allocation was increased by 49 cents a student. Disgusting and despicable for a state like ours. Last year, they increased the base student allocation pre-K to 12 by $75, and the proposed increase that was voted on by the State Board of Education today was a just over $50 base student allocation going forward next year. I think that the Speaker of the House next year is going to go back and try to pick up one or two of the healthcare proposals he didn't get. One would be scope of practice, which allows non-doctors, registered nurses, LPNs, other medically trained folks who can do certain things within a hospital or a doctor's office setting, again, to continue to bring prices down, greater transparency in healthcare delivery. He's going to come back on that. I think he's going to focus on children. You haven't read about it yet. I think you can look at the legislature focusing on the most unrepresented group of citizens in the 21 million people that live in our great state. I think he's going to begin to focus attention on children.
Madam
I think
Chair.
you will see greater attention paid pre-K to 12
Pardon
and
me.
higher ed.
Mr. Book, I want to ask you a question
Yes, sir.
about going forward. So do you think that the legislature reduced the amount of water projects simply because of the efforts for Hurricane Michael, the Hurricane Michael effort reliefs in the Panhandle?
100%.
Do you expect that that's something that we have to deal with going forward?
I believe that going forward, we're in an election year, and the only place lawmakers can bring anything home to their constituents is water projects or park projects.
Okay, well,
If
we
I
have
were-
a list.
That's where
Mr.
my
Book.
focus would be, on a high-quality water project or two, and in anything that you can tie back, Mr. Manager, to the environment. That helps to make it veto-proof. The governor is committed on that.
Mr. Manager, you gonna respond?
Yes, absolutely. We have a couple of projects that we would like to sit down and have more substantive discussions. We have met with a couple of the board members about making some sizable investments in our water treatment process and looking to move forward with the potential reconstruction of a water treatment facility. So staff has already engaged a consultant for the purposes of looking at a master plan and then getting some things that we believe that are close to shovel ready, because we know that the governor has articulated his commitment to the environment and water quality. I think this is the first governor that's actually have a chief scientist position that was created. So from our standpoint, we will definitely provide a white paper and be willing to go up to Tallahassee to fight on behalf of our community. In addition to, there's some things that we want to do on a citywide basis to make sure we protect and preserve the water quality in the Lake Worth Lagoon. And, we're looking at some public policy opportunities, but anything that we can do to leverage some monies from the state to assist on some of those initiatives, we certainly will be putting something forward, I would say, in the next 30 to 45 days to have some discussions with you all as to how we will proceed forward, assuming that this board gives us the policy direction to do so.
I would say, Mr. Manager, if I could, I would urge us to try to compress that by a week or two if you can. Look, they don't have a hard deadline right now. We're in a comfort zone time period. We help ourselves when we get our projects submitted earlier. They get heard earlier. They get worked on by staff earlier. When we get stuff back from you, we rescrub it for you. We rescrub it for language, we rescrub it for numbers, we rescrub it to make sure that it's in a form at which it's not just the three of us here. We got a couple other folks within our firms that's all they do. Their job is to go through your forms. They're all decades plus experienced in the budget process. And before we take it to your members that represent the city, we've made sure they are not just error-free, but where we think we can, if you will, massage things to enhance buzzword-wise where we think you need to be, we get that time. But our goal would be to be in and in the process by the end of September if we can.
And Mr. Manager, I really like the Lake Worth Lagoon. I think that might fit. I think it might fit into that Blue Algae Task Force work. So I think we ought to jump on that one right away.
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing that up.
And certainly, I think one of the things that we're going to need some assistance from our legislative delegation, as well as those in Tallahassee, is to advocate for expedited permitting on the water treatment facility, because in conversations I've had with staff, that to go through the regulatory agencies to be able to do a deep drill or a deep water drill is going to take 5 to 7 years for permitting. And of course, that's a bunch of different regulatory agencies. And the faster we can get that test well in the ground to find out, you know, if we can move forward with some additional well sites on our property, the better off we are. So we'll provide that information,
Okay,
but we're going to
good.
probably need some push on.
Yeah, that's something that's doable, Mr. Manager. And I think, I echo what Attorney Book said. If we can cut off a week or two
Yeah.
there. I mean, listen, we're in committee meetings the third week in September. And the sooner that we're able to, and also our delegation, you know, we gotta be able to equip, you already know this. We gotta be able to equip those legislators. We have a very boisterous and a legislative delegation in Palm Beach County that knows how to maneuver. The sooner we equip them with this information, the better.
How much are we talking about on the lagoon?
The lagoon, we haven't put a specific number to it yet as far as what the ask would be or what specifically we're looking at. We've thrown around some numbers with regards to the opportunity to acquire some submerged lands for the purposes of preserving the water quality. One of the things we're also looking at is with our water treatment process and our wastewater, trying to mitigate any potential discharges in the Lake Worth Lagoon. Because of some of the age of the piping and some of the infrastructure, we've had some challenges with that over the past couple of years. So staff is really trying to put together some things that we can do to better equip you all and the delegation to be able to assist us in Tallahassee.
If the number on the lagoon is a large number, and to me, a large number is anything north of the first 1 cent over the 7-figure number, that becomes a large number. But anything that's meaningful above that, one of the things that I think we can do to build some level of momentum is, it's our project, money comes to us, but get the county to put it on their list so that the message to your delegation as a whole is broader than the couple of members that represent Riviera Beach.
Right.
Then we engage the whole delegation and they're pushing it up the way.
Right.
It would help us, I believe, if we did that.
Well, and certainly I think something that we can do from a city's perspective is when we do have situations where there's opportunities for our projects to be heard in committee, encouraging our residents to make phone calls to take the trip to Tallahassee, even if we have to put them on a bus with us to go up there and do that.
Today, the process is a little different.
Speak into the microphone.
The process is different, and if you can bring a busload of your citizens up to talk about ugly water, blue, green, pink, yellow, gray, I don't care what color the algae looks like, you bring them up and have them bring a bucket or two of that stuff with them, please. You want to talk about things that help, right now, they like people coming to the halls.
Hey, excuse me, can I ask a question? Sure. Mr. Manager, did you say put the council members on the bus? Are we taking Greyhound or are we taking the mayor's plane? One last question, and I'm sorry I don't know this. Did we have something called Plumoso Park that we tried to do?
We did.
I don't even know where that is.
No, it didn't get funded.
But it's in the city. It's a neighborhood.
It is.
I don't.
We
Where's
don't
that?
know where it is. Well, it wasn't here when I lived here.
I know. So,
Councilman, so
I-
I
you know,
can't tell you
I-
where it is, but it was a project that we were working this last session.
Well, and to that point, one of the things that we want to do is to make sure any ask that we ask of the legislature, that you as the board set the legislative priorities and adopt the projects, because if those projects require matching funding, and then we come back and I say, we got money for a park that nobody knows where it is, that's not utilizing the firepower that we have in Tallahassee. So when we bring forward those white papers, I would expect that the board would ratify it in some action, and then it would go, and that would be the legislative priority, so you know exactly what we're doing and how you can advocate on behalf of those
Okay,
projects.
Mr. Manager, does anybody know where Plumosa Park is?
Blankenship
Relative
should
to,
know.
because I seen this on the county budget sheet, and it was a Riviera Beach appropriation. I was like, I never even heard of
The
that.
Parks and Rec director doesn't know either.
No, it's a neighborhood.
Oh, a neighborhood.
It's a neighborhood.
Oh, well,
Almost
I
like
don't know
Park
that
Manor,
either.
but it's,
Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
Maybe Mr. Gagnon might know.
I'd be happy offline to tell you
Okay.
where the project came from, but I will tell you, it's been 2 years since we've had a legislative agenda voted on by the council, and the recommendation by the manager is a great one and is standard practice and should be done here as well.
sounds good.
One of the things that, just a question, a point of clarity, in 2018, that controversial piece of legislation, House Bill 631, with regards to beach access. And we've had a lot of conversations and a lot of discussions from our residents. Some residents have even sent us photos of private property, do not access. Can you kind of give us an update on what's going on with that piece of legislation, and so we can help inform and educate our public
I'm not on.
of that particular matter?
I'm gonna let Attorney Book elaborate on it. I will say this: there was a fix in play last year by Senator Rouson, and it didn't pass. But Riviera Beach has some special issues as it relates to it. But he worked on the bill.
I know the issue very, very well. If you could, I mean, what is happening here? If I understand where the problems are on the beach, I can respond better. And if the county hasn't done anything, I'm not sure anybody can shut off anybody's access. What the bill did is it said that from the mean high line to the water is public access. What it said was that the dry sand behind someone's home is theirs, subject to what is or is not usual and customary. What is the customary pathways? And so things that are already established, they can't take away. If someone could send me what is occurring on the beach, you could have things going on that the bill didn't do, which is part of the problem. You have people who have just decided that from the water to their house
It's private.
is private, and that's just not what the bill did.
And part of the
It's what called Rosemary Beach was where it occurred, which was an issue in Walton County, and quite direct. They had a similar situation occur in Volusia. That Volusia County resolved. They had a very similar issue up in Fernandina, where the issue got resolved before the Rosemary Beach bill passed.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
this is an issue, as you can well imagine, near and dear to my heart,
That's
and
behind the hotel.
almost all my
can't do that.
constituents.
They cannot.
Well, hold on. What are we doing
Could
here?
Could I,
We need attention back up here, please. Get Mr. He needs to focus this way.
almost every one of the constituents that I have on Singer Island has been enraged by the notion that they might be prohibited, and the people on the west side of the lagoon as well, enraged by the notion that they might be prohibited from using a public what had been customarily their recreation area. If we could have something in writing, it would help me greatly in the coming season to let people know that they in fact have access to the beach, and people who live in, and I am a condo, I live on the ocean side as a condo resident and a board person in my condo. It's been a very, very contentious issue on Singer Island. So any help you can give us to help clarify what the legalities of that are would be most appreciated.
Mr. Manager, if you could, I mean, I'm happy to call Councilwoman or directly, or if you've got someone within your staff that understands what is happening, whatever area your beach is, and I can get that and understand it, I'll get you responses and I'll get you the right answers as opposed to made-up
Good. Great.
BS stuff
Yeah,
that we know is happening in other places.
Yeah, we will certainly draft a memorandum to send to you to kind of explain the issues. And then once we receive your correspondence back, we'll share it with the general public.
All right. Is that the conclusion of your presentation?
Yeah, and I just want to say that, first of all, thank you. We've taken a lot of time, and I apologize for that. But this is a new relationship for the most part, one we're looking forward to. And I was really encouraged to see all of you at the League of Cities meeting. I think it's important. I just want and hope that you take the same kind of trip to Tallahassee when the time is right, because we meet with these members and these leaders all the time. When you tell us that you'll come, you give us a second and a third and a fourth opportunity to get in that door and talk about this issue. So it's an open invitation, and I was really encouraged to see y'all there working the way you were. So thank you for that, because that helps also.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Quickly, there are two issues that I'd like to have further conversations about. One is the issue that we cannot enact any ordinance prohibiting assault weapons, for example, in Riviera Beach. I'd like to know, we are engaged in a lawsuit right now along with many, and not to take it now because of the time, but perhaps offline we could discuss that. And the second one is with regard to the Sadowski Act and the money that they continue to take out of Sadowski. Is there anything that we can do as a community to try to pressure them not to remove that money from Sadowski?
Please
And we can take it
offline,
offline.
because I'm a Second Amendment proponent, okay? For gun rights.
You can go right ahead, sir, but you don't carry an assault weapon. The last time I looked, so.
Well, that's why I've suggested we do it off record, but if you come to my house, you'll be surprised.
All right.
Well, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Chair,
Well, thank you
thank
so
you so
much.
much.
And I've made those trips up there, and your office
have.
has been very, very helpful and instrumental in making sure that we get to the lieutenant governor and all of the delegates that are up there. So we appreciate it, and I look forward to being able to come up and do that as well and bring more money back to the city.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Mayor.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry for taking so much time.
No problem, thank you. Okay, is the person, who's doing the census? Person here?
Yes.
Okay, and then the Star families.
Yep, they're both here.
Okay, so we do have public comments that we normally start at 7:30. We didn't start our meeting until about 6:40, 6:45. So we'll do the two awards and presentations, which shouldn't take very long, and then we'll move into public comment. So item number 4.
U.S. Census Bureau 2020 Census Information.
All right, Mr. Manager.
We have a representative here that staff has had the opportunity to meet concerning the upcoming census. Mr. Stanford Goodman is here to provide a presentation to the board and the community.
Good evening.
Let's get that.
Hold on 1 minute, they'll help you with that.
Madam Chair, Mr. Mayor,
Pull your mic down to the middle. Yep.
council members, thank you for letting me be here. My
Good
name is Sandy Goodman, or Sanford Goodman, the way my parents named me. City of Riviera Beach is a key partner in the 2020 census. Reaching your hard-to-count, there you go, reaching your hard-to-count populations and convincing them to participate in the census will have a lasting impact. We will do everything we can, along with your city manager and his staff and a team, to support your efforts. In 2010, the response rate from the city of Riviera Beach was 65%. That meant that 35% of your population were not counted. I'll explain the significance a little later. Florida is part of the Atlanta census region. It includes 7 states in total. It represents the largest population grouping in the country. And like I said, Atlanta is the base. I'm in Palm Beach County, Florida. I live there, and I service most of the municipals and a lot of other organizations. So the purpose of the census is to accurately count every person living in the United States once, only once, and in the right place. And there are three primary reasons. One, it's mandated by the Constitution. Two, it's for political power. And three, for the allocation of money. Oh, you doing it or am I doing it? There you go. Mandated. I got it now. Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution requires that a separate census be taken every 10 years. The census covers the entire country and everyone living in it. Makes no difference what they are. If they're breathing, they count. For political power, the census is used for the equitable distribution of power in our democracy. Every 10 years, the results of the census in terms of population are used to reapportion the House of Representatives, determining how many seats each state gets. Of the 438 seats, the total House seats, 435 are allocated to states based upon the census population counts. And they are subject to change every 10 years. In 2010, Florida picked up 2 seats. They didn't increase the number of seats in the House, so someone lost. Additionally, every census, state officials use the results of the population count to redraw boundaries of their congressional and state legislative districts, adapting to the population shifts. Money, here's the big one. Many federal and state funds are distributed using census numbers to guide them. Data from the census will determine the distribution of more than $675 billion each year for the next 10 years. And they support federal, state, and local programs that are funded by the House of Representatives. It also is important to note that a relatively small undercount can have a significant economic impact in your city over the course of the next decade until the next census in 2030. Using Palm Beach County's numbers of $1,600 per person, an undercount of just 625 people means that the city will lose $1 million. And do the multiples. There's a lot at stake. In previous censuses, the primary method of responding to the census was to receive a questionnaire in the mail, complete it, and send it back in the postage-paid envelope. Instead, in 2020, we have made it easy for the people to respond anytime, anywhere. You'll be able to respond to the census online, on a computer, or on a smartphone. For 2020, our focus for the census is to provide self-response. And for those of you who are unable to or choose not to respond online, we offer 2 secondary ways to respond. The first is to call an 800 number and respond to a census taker over the phone who will take your data in an encryption mode. And the second is wait until the middle of April, when a letter will come with the census form to respond to. There are 3 phases that help us reach our ultimate goal of counting everyone. First, we have to begin our operation, which establishes where to count. After we know where to count, the next step is the invitation postcards sent to everyone to self-respond. And then, if necessary, we remind them with letters and other postcards. And then when we use the most cost-effective manner to get to people who have decided not to respond at all. And that basically means knocking on doors. So address canvassing is our first field operation, which began this past Sunday on August 18th. The operation helps us to identify all addresses where people live. An accurate count of the addresses and lists ensures us that residents will be invited to participate in the census so they can count everyone. And for addresses, the address canvassing operation, census workers will be in your community. We've already notified the sheriff's office and all local enforcement so they wouldn't be seen as intruders, and all they're doing is verifying the address. The operation allows us to then send the mailing packets to the household for self-response. This is a description of when the action dates are, and basically it's when it's time to respond. Most households will receive the invitation in the mail. They will actively encourage people to use the new online response option. Most areas in the Atlanta region are likely to respond online. And by the way, part of what we have is the information as to how many homes have computers and access to the internet, which is very helpful to the manager in terms of where to deploy people or a process to get people who aren't connected. So on March 12th to March 20th, households are going to receive a geocoded postcard. And that geocoded postcard will give them instructions how to get online and how to send in their information online. From March 16th to March 24th, every household that hasn't already responded will get reminders. April 8th to April 16th, reminder letters will go out with paper questionnaires. April 20th to April 27th, a final reminder will go out to people who have not responded online, responded by the phone, responded to the mail-out questionnaire, and that follow-up will be eventually with knocks on the door. This shows the timing of the census from beginning to end. We are currently in the motivating people to self-respond mode. Then we have been meeting with our partners and organizations and governments from all backgrounds and communities to make sure they're aware of the census, that the census is coming, and talk to them about the benefits of completing the census. Now we are conducting the address canvassing, which I said started last Sunday. And next is field operations. We're going to collect the data. Then is Census Day, which is April 1st. And last is the non-response follow-up. That leads to the data population for each state that we must deliver to the President by December 31st, 2020. Ultimately, the success of the census depends upon everyone's participation. During the operational phase, the Census Bureau depends upon a cross-sector collaboration with organizations and individuals to get the word out. With our combined effort, the 2020 census will be successful and will provide America with the data needed to make good policy decisions for the growing population of the country. Now I'll take questions.
Did we have any public comment cards for this item?
No,
Excuse-
Madam Chair.
Okay. Do we have any comments or questions from the board?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
are you hiring for people locally to conduct some of the?
I'm glad you
Okay.
asked. The Census Bureau for our Atlanta region is taking applications for 428,000 applicants. They are hiring people at the local level. Each census tract will be what is the focus, and the people living in that census tract will be the people who they want to employ. Meaning that if you're from the area, you're indigenous, you know the area, you're not going to a foreign place, and you should feel comfortable doing it. In the first part, it's address canvassing. All they're doing is going out, looking, and they're entering into a computer. Yes, this house exists. It has 3 families or 3 doors, and that's what they're looking at.
How do people apply?
Everything is done online, and we have had communication with the city manager in terms of applications. Everything is online. He will have the information. He should post it on your website and everything else so that people can access that.
Okay. Follow up. We are very sensitive to being hacked and hacking issues.
No hacking.
How are you safeguarding against that?
First of all, let's talk about, see this? I'm a sworn person. No one in census can reveal anything. But when it comes to hacking, there's a reason why people are concerned. The census has an encryption mode whereby whenever anybody says something to a census taker in the office who's going to take the information over the phone, it gets immediately encrypted. It's not there to be visible or stolen by anybody. The same thing with when individuals will go online themselves. They'll be able to enter the information. As they're entering it, it will be encrypted. It doesn't stay there. So we're not concerned about the theft of or intrusion into the census data bank.
Did you have a question, Councilwoman?
I'll ask my
I was gonna ask that as well. Anyone else?
You should be asking a couple more questions.
Well, why
and I'm-
don't you just go ahead and give us the answers to them?
Well, we had census in our League of Cities training last week.
Yes.
Yeah,
By the way, the League of Cities
so we're experts
is,
now.
is a phenomenal group that has their own complete count committee, and they are doing a yeoman's job, just like Palm Beach County's Board of County Commissioners, which I'm addressing next Tuesday. But they're doing a great job. I can't ask for more. Out of the 40 municipalities in Palm Beach County, 30 of which I have addressed, 18 of them are forming complete count committees, as well as the city of Riviera Beach, which is why I believe it's on your agenda tonight to approve. The formation of a complete count committee is the best chance that you have for getting an accurate and effective count of your population, because it gives you the tools, give you the training, and the staff and the volunteers that you will have formulating that committee will be empowered to carry your message in a unified way so that everyone hears it and will listen. And we find that the best way of getting that message out is not by having me talk to anybody, because nobody knows who I am, but by hearing that message through trusted voices. And there are many, many trusted voices who need to be giving that message out. The other question that you should want to ask about is your seasonal residents, and you do have a chunk of them. Seasonal residents, for the first time, are going to get that invitation not in the mail like they did 10 years ago, but they're going to get it in a postcard, and it's going to come to them on March 12th, which means they're still here. They haven't fled to go back up north. And as I said to your manager, the key for you is to send that message to those people so that they know when they get that postcard on March 12th, get online, do it, because you want them counted here, not where they go up north, whether they're in another state or whether they leave the country. Makes no difference. You need them here.
Okay, anyone else? Mr. Manager?
Madam Chair, members of the board, the intent behind this presentation is to see if the board is in favor of me bringing forward a resolution for each of you to appoint somebody to serve on that complete count committee, and I would bring that forward at your next meeting. I just wanted to make sure before we committed that you would be in favor of moving forward in such a fashion.
Yes, need a
Madam-
motion for it.
So moved.
Second.
Go ahead, Councilman Lawson.
This was actually one of the major topics that we did talk about League of Cities. So we had this presentation. We're excited to move forward with this. So definitely, I think this is something. And also, I'm excited the job opportunities that it's going to bring as well. They're going to be paying a living wage to actually the individuals that's going to be working on the census. So it's something that's going to be good for the city and something that we need to really focus on. So I say we move forward with it.
All right. Well,
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much, appreciate it. Item number 5?
Roll call on the vote.
Oh, no, it's not, it's just a I'm sorry, yeah, for the motion she just made, yes.
Councilperson Lawson?
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier?
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy?
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel?
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Item number 5?
Palm Beach County Gold Star Families, presented by Lauren Bergson.
Mr. Manager?
Hey, Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm going to be very straightforward. How much time do we allot for this presentation? Because we have a very lengthy agenda, and we started just after 5 o'clock.
I can make it 5 minutes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about 3?
I can do it 4.
Okay.
Good compromise.
Sorry,
I like negotiating.
and I'm very honest.
Well, thank you very much. So am I. It's a pleasure for me
You
to
don't
be
have,
here.
you don't have to lean over, it'll pick you up.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Good
I
evening.
appreciate it. I'm just gonna play this. What did Walter do here?
Get that, Lauren.
Yeah, no, it's supposed to be on the other.
Is this the
Yeah, here we go.
is this the program that?
No, well, this is what I wanted to play. Okay. Hopefully he'll turn it up for us.
We remember them as children, playing in a yard, blowing out candles, taking their first steps. We held them as babies and watched them grow into airmen. We remember them as our fathers and mothers. When we said goodbye and tried not to cry, and then letting it all out every time they came home, crying when it finally sunk in that this time they weren't coming home. We remember them on our wedding days, our first dates, waking up together, and how they died in slow motion on a phone call or in a living room when we heard the words, "You might want to sit down." The reality is, nobody was ever killed peacefully in action. And knowing that will rip your heart apart when you think of someone you loved and still love, always, in their final moments on this earth. They didn't deserve to die like that. But they believed our country deserved all they had to give. There was so much more they could have given. For a Gold Star family, every day is your own personal Memorial Day. The picture on the wall, dressed blues with a flag behind them. Flag from the coffin on a mantle, or tucked away someplace you can take it out and hold it when you need to. We still pay their cell phone bills so we can call and hear their voices. We still visit the base because we want to be included, because we're still Air Force. And if you're on gate duty and see that gold star on the back of our pass, you don't have to worry about what to say to us. We know. And thank you. This is a club no one wants to join, but this is where we are, and we're as proud as we ever were. Gold Star families can say things to each other we can't with anyone else. Our civilian friends love us and mean well, but they treat us with kid gloves. They can't even say the words body or killed. It's not talking about it that hurts. We talk about the pain. We can talk about every detail about the day we got the news, but we don't. We talk about what they were like, and we're there for each other because a Gold Star family understands what no one else does. A person dies twice, once when they breathe their last breath, and once when their name is never spoken again. They are never forgotten. Remember them as children. Remember them as fathers, as mothers and sisters and brothers. Remember them as the ones we loved, because they were ours before they were yours. Remember
I'm gonna give myself 30 seconds. So I basically played that for you so you can understand what a Gold Star family is. Not sure if you already knew, but it's important, I think, for our community as a whole to acknowledge Gold Star families. And we've been working on a mission to acknowledge Gold Star families in different cities in Palm Beach County. And of course, I wanted to come before you and ask if, trying to get this to be on.
While you're doing that, I did see this in the newspaper a little while back. I think it mentioned about you being a Riviera Beach resident.
That's correct.
And you went before the Town of Palm Beach Council.
This
And-
morning, yes.
And, well, the article was some time ago.
Okay.
And I guess you've gone to 16 municipalities. Had you tried to come to Riviera Beach before, and you just could never get on the agenda?
Actually, yes, that's correct. I started in West Palm Beach. We're actually building a big monument. Oh, can you do the big? Yeah, thank you. I just want to show them a couple photos. So-
You can keep talking while he's
Thank
doing
you.
that.
Yeah, thanks. So we're building a large monument in downtown West Palm Beach on Flagler Drive. And that monument will be 13 feet wide and 7 feet tall. But I'm doing markers and plaques in other cities around Palm Beach County. And it's because there's 39 cities in Palm Beach County, not all of them have a Veterans Park or a Veterans Day or Memorial Day event, or a population, actually, like Westlake, Briny Breezes, Gulf. Those cities I'm not even approaching them. That's where the 16 cities that you spoke of came up. So these monuments and markers, the one that we're doing, that we have in Kelsey Park and Lake Park right now is the one you see on the left. The one that will be at Palm Beach Gardens Veterans Plaza is the one you see on the right, which I brought with me. Give you an idea of size. This happens to be porcelain. And this is what the Palm Beach Gardens Veterans Plaza will have. The Village of North Palm Beach will be putting it on their flagpole. And this is actually the completed base that this will sit in, and it can hold either a bronze plaque or the porcelain. And I'm actually looking at doing that as well up in Tequesta. So yes, I'm here because I've walked through the new Marina Village that you did an absolutely beautiful job with. And I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I would like to ask you to consider Bicentennial Park, you know, next to the monument sign there, if you could have a flagpole. The entire village and Marina doesn't have a flagpole. And I know that that sounds kind of stupid to some people, but there are events there for the 4th of July, and I think it would be nice. You have a lot of veterans that live in Riviera Beach. A lot that work and live in Riviera Beach. And the families, you know, of the fallen, we often get forgotten about. So I just am proposing that I would like to see, you know, something placed. I mean, obviously, you could see I'm trying to do it all over the county, but obviously I live here. I've worked here for many, many years. I would like to see, you know.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
I would like to make a motion that we ask staff to work with Lauren to develop a Gold Star Memorial at Bicentennial Park.
Second. I have a question. So with these, the funding of this comes directly from the city, or does your organization?
Oh,
put
yeah,
forth
so, well, like, the town of Lake Park paid for their own marker because they felt like that's what they wanted to do. And different cities have different, you know, like Tequesta's paying for theirs, they have discretionary funds. It just, everybody's different, and yes, if you tell me you don't have the funds for it, I'll raise the funds.
What is the range of prices?
Well,
Maybe the one you have, you just showed us.
oh,
What
the
is that one?
porcelain one, $350.
And then plus the base, or the base?
Well, I can get the base donated. There's a firefighter, a Palm Beach County firefighter that will make it and donate it for me, which, again, I'm very grateful. We're very grateful for the opportunity to even place them. you
Any
know.
other questions or comments?
And, you know, people don't know the difference between Memorial Day and Veterans Day or Armed Forces Day.
Right.
And I think it's important for the community to not just know what a Gold Star family is, but to also understand that, you know, we're all the beneficiaries of these brave men and women.
Right.
And we live in the best country in the world.
Do we have any public comment cards for this item?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. Questions, comments from the board?
Yes, Madam Chair. Can you remind me of your name, because I don't think I got it?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Lauren Berkson. I'm the Gold Star daughter of Captain Joseph M. Berkson, who was killed in Vietnam.
Okay, so Lauren, thank you for the presentation, and just understand that me asking you to be brief had nothing to do with, because I had no idea.
Well, I assumed you didn't know what a Gold Star family was.
No, I didn't, but, you know, I didn't know that we were gonna have another PowerPoint slide. I thought it was just gonna be something brief. But my question
Yes.
is, are you definite that you're looking for some sort of memorial at the marina, at the Bicentennial Park?
Well, when I looked around, you know, Riviera Beach, Ocean Mall was a thought, but, you know, the reason why I did Flagler Drive down in West Palm is because Sunfest, the boat show, it's about visibility. I want to be where people can see it. I don't want to be someplace where people aren't going to see it. And I feel like your new Marina Village is so beautiful, and so many people go there for markets, and they have all kinds of events there. And you know, you want people to be reminded. This is a permanent reminder to people that freedom isn't free.
Right.
This is a permanent reminder that we should all have gratitude. And I don't know of anywhere else in Riviera Beach that it would get that much attention
Right.
by everyone, visitors, tourists, residents. You know, everybody is going to go there. And you know, they have concerts at that park. And then, you know, I know that there's some pads that will be future restaurants and stuff. So I don't want to interfere with your development process. So I was trying to put it someplace where it could be seen by everyone, but still not interfere and impede on. And again, there's not a flagpole there. You know, that sounds.
All right.
That's-
Go ahead, Mr. McCoy.
That sounds like an easy one. I think, but would that be the CRA side for us to do that?
Yes, we would design it and we'd make the CRA pay for it. But,
Well,
but yeah, we would work in collaboration.
Well, and I'm
with the
willing
CRA.
to do whatever it takes to raise the money too.
I think it's probably best that the CRA, and then, you know, ironically, I've seen the CDC just on Palm Beach County's agenda for getting some real property from the county, so they're doing a lot. Let's see if we can get the CDC to buy in on it as well.
Well, and to your point, I think one of the things that's important is that we should be a community that has a Veterans Day and Memorial Day celebration. And I think this is the first step to have this constructed and have it up for us to be the place where we host our Veterans Day and Memorial Day celebrations, because having one of the biggest VA hospitals in the state of Florida, it's only fitting. And so I think the timing was perfect, and I know that this board is adamant about doing things that recognize those folks that have paid their ultimate sacrifice, and those that are serving and those that continue to serve. And so when we had the presentation, it really resonated with me, and so this is why we're here. Another spin-off of this, we want to also look to change the employees' attire on Friday to red to remember those that are deployed, because routinely we forget those that are still serving our country, whether it's here or abroad. So we want to be a community that embraces our military personnel and recognizes them.
Less than 1% of our population volunteers to keep us free. Instead, people are focused on the 1% of the wealth. So I just think it's wonderful how you're acknowledging.
Anyone else?
I just wanted to say that my brother is a veteran, fortunately not in your case, but.
He still sacrifices, I'm
Yes,
sure.
yes,
And I'm sure his family does too.
So I wanted to say that, you know, even if we can't work something out with the CDC, I would be willing to work with you with my discretionary funds to get this done.
Well, thank you very much.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
me also.
Oh,
So
thank
you
you,
don't,
sir.
you don't have to go out and fundraise. We'll make it happen.
Very grateful.
All right, so we're going to keep the motion on the floor for staff to go, and then he's going to take it up with the CRA. All right, thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate your timing.
No problem. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Lawson?
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier? Councilperson McCoy?
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel?
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
All right, we'll go into public comments. Public comments should be restricted to issues, matters, or topics pertinent to the city of Riviera Beach. Please be reminded that the city council has adopted rules of decorum governing public conduct during official meetings, which has been posted at the entrance of the council chambers. In an effort to preserve order, if any of the rules are not adhered to, the council chair may have any disruptive speaker or attendee removed from the podium, from the meeting, and/or the building if necessary. Please govern yourselves accordingly.
Madam Chair,
The acceptance of public comment cards for this section of the agenda is now closed. Bonnie Larson, Capernia Larkins, Edwin Ferguson.
Good evening, Bonnie Larson.
Good
The
evening.
report by the Pittman Group, that was the best we've ever had. Best we've ever had. We usually just comes and says, you know, I'm your representative, please hire me again. But that attorney was very, very good, so I'm glad he came tonight. I just have,
Just pull the mic over a little bit.
okay, I just have a couple small things tonight. There were no minutes on the agenda tonight. And what's happening with the court reporter? Are we like delaying that? Are we not going to do it? Or what is the situation with that? Like I said, the CRA can afford it, so why can't we? I'm just wondering, we've talked about it quite a bit, but we don't have it. The phone system, okay. I was trying to make some calls this week to Deirdre or Mr. Evans, and what happens is the phones go to the clerk's office. She sent me to someone else, who sent me to someone else, who then told me that either on Friday they said your phones weren't working, or they say the mailboxes are full. We shouldn't have to go through all those steps. And when you call up the city, you get a list of divisions you might want to speak with. And the city clerk's office is not on there, and the city manager's office is not one of the options. So we need to prioritize that list of people that we can contact on there and also update it. Also, I guess this is for the city clerk's office. Also, I looked on the web yesterday, and it said the meeting tonight was at 6. I got here, and it says 6:30. All right. So Walter said that he's in charge of the sign out front, but someone has to tell Walter what to put out there. So we need to have an accurate information out there. Also, the board downstairs is way out of date, way out of date. It still mentions the community development department, which was changed. That name was changed quite a while ago, over a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago now. And it has Deirdre on there as the interim city manager. No mention of Mr. Evans. We're very proud he's our city manager. His name is not downstairs, and we want it there. We want everybody to know that he's our city manager. We're proud of that. Rules of decorum. We've had a lot of, mostly one person in particular, starting to swear at the meetings, and that's just not appropriate. And I see that it's on the list that we shouldn't be doing that, because young children watch these meetings, and that's what they learn from. They learn that that's okay to speak in that manner, and it's not. So if we could have a little more oomph behind that. Oh, Mr. Evans, when you hire a water department guy, if you could somehow encourage him to live in Riviera Beach, I'm tired of going out to buy water. And if that person lived here, they'd either have to drink the water or go out and buy it like we do. So, you know, you're more inclined to do it if you're drinking the water here.
Thank you, Ms.
I'm
Larson.
tired. All right.
Who's next? Ms.
Capernia Larkins, Edwin Ferguson, Lloyd Brown.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. City Manager, welcome back. Our new mayor, welcome. Council, I'm Capernia Larkins, and you all may have received a folder from me. I petitioned and asked all of you all to look at the folder that contained letters of others who supported my efforts, that I'm petitioning to have my street, West 16th Street, that I've lived there over 30 years, 35 to be exact, but I went to Atlanta for a short time, changed to Capernia Street. Some know and some don't, but I was once in a wheelchair. I've been in that chair, also still making Thanksgiving boxes, packing backpacks, wrapping Christmas gifts, and making ways for families to get food. All over Riviera, all over Palm Beach County, and many times even in other counties. So I have been given pretty much the runaround, and I don't want to sound like I'm disgusted, but it's been about 6 months that I've been trying to get this done. I don't know what the procedure is because I've called the city manager office. I've called to the city, spoke with the clerk's office, and I've tried other offices, and I was just getting a complete runaround. So my choice, as I said, was I went to Orlando last week to try to get a kidney. So I couldn't be here, but I left the letter and the folders and explained that I like to see my street change with my name before my demise. So I need direction, I need approval, or give me some understanding on why it cannot be done. I know that there are flowers that I've earned.
So after your comment time, Mr. Evans, he goes through all of the questions and give answers at the end of public comments, okay? So if you want to hang around, he can maybe give you some information on it or have staff give you a call. So as soon as we finish with public comment, he comes around and answers.
Mr. Edwards, I don't know if you got your folder, because you were in the middle of this, so I brought one for you. Did everyone else get theirs?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for your time.
No
God bless
problem.
you all and have a blessed evening.
Edwin Ferguson, Lloyd Brown, Dr. Philip Dukes.
Good evening, Edwin Ferguson, 2826 Broadway Avenue.
Good evening.
Just wanted to address the group regarding our schools here in Riviera Beach. And I'm sure most of you know, yet again, 3 of our elementary schools are in the bottom 300 of the state of Florida. I don't know how many years in consecutive years this has been, but it's time for us to do something now. The young lady came earlier and asked for the city's support in regard to this Gold Star Memorial, which is a good thing. But I think the better thing for us to focus on, in addition to that, is our kids. I saw Mr. Pittman and his group speak about the $150,000 that's been brought down from Tallahassee for some sort of agency or organization. I would say we need to do more. The town of Wellington, for example, every year gives $20,000 to each of its schools, and that's a very affluent city. I know their budget may be slightly larger than ours, but I did have the chance to watch the session that you all had on August 12th when Mr. Evans and Mr. Sherman mentioned the fact that you have about 144 days of cash on hand right now, that if you didn't get another dollar, you can cover the expenditures of this city. And I believe Mr. Sherman said that you spend about $205,000 approximately each day. And that's about a 500% increase in terms of the number of days since 2013 when you had 28 days on hand. And I suspect that the amount of money you were spending back in 2013 was probably not $205,000. So I'll cut to the point. I think that Riviera Beach needs to step up, and Riviera Beach needs to include in its budget annually $20,000 for each of the elementary schools as well as Kennedy Middle School. I don't think that's too much to ask for a number of reasons. One, I think long-term it's a smart thing to do because you'll see that your crime rate will go down. I don't do as much criminal work as I used to do, but I can tell you that the majority of my clients that I've represented in the indigent communities of Palm Beach County, there's a breakdown in terms of the education that they were afforded. You can blame the parents all you want to, but the fact of the matter is these are your children. You may not have birthed them, but they're your responsibility, they're your wards. So it's your reasonable service to the community to do something like this, and I strongly encourage you all. I know you're in the process of completing the budget for this year. Let's do this right now. I know there was a conversation had here, I believe, on Monday about creating some sort of organization. Let's do away with the red tick. Let's not have another Stop the Violence rally or what can we do until we do this. So I'm asking you all, I'm imploring you all to include $100,000 in your budget each year to be sent to all 5 of your local true community schools, Kennedy and the 4 elementary schools. Thank you for your time. And I also want to thank Mr. Evans really quickly. You've already hit the ground running. I was championing the computer buyback program. It looks like it's something that hopefully we can get off the ground, or you, actually, I'm just have the idea, but the city staff is doing a really good job in terms of trying to get that off the ground, but we have to do much more. If we say that we care about the city, let's put our money behind our mouths. Thank you for your time. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Lloyd Brown, Dr. Philip Dukes, Bessie Brown.
How you doing? I'm just wondering, I give my address, 1464 West 35th Street, and I have a refrigerator that I want to sell there. That's all I wanted to let you know that. But anyway, what the guy was saying, you know, I can understand him about, you know, marching, talking about stop crime. But if that's all you're gonna do, you castrate yourself right then and there. If you're just gonna march and then you're going home, what's the use of marching? And I understand what he's saying. And another thing, why is it that when Singles Island Coalition come over here, they come over here in a group? See, I'm representing all the people that I know. See, but when they come over here, they come together. So like when you hear me tell you that I disagree on something, it's not just me. It's all the people out there. They asked me, they said, you know, you got a slogan that says one of the greatest cities to live, work, and whatever, play in. Well, they say, you know what, we live here, but I'd be double if we work here and play here. And that's how the people feel. I mean, just to be living here, you need to change that slogan, because most of the people I know that live here don't work here. And most of the people who work here and play here don't live here. And that doesn't make sense. And then I want to thank Ms. Botel about the situation she asked me, but let Mr. Evans get himself straight. You know, I've been up here for some years and nothing been done. So it's like it ain't going to kill me to wait a few more, because, I mean, it seemed like you and the other lady, Pardo, I mean, I know you're not black by looking at you. So, I mean, you and her are the only two people who actually came to me and asked me about my question. And you know what the people say over there on the other side? They said, we done walk y'all to the hill and we done put you up on top. Now, throw a rope down and pull us up with you. Because, I mean, as far as I'm looking at it, there aren't no jobs. There aren't none in the crime. And, I mean, y'all don't even walk around and look around your neighborhoods. If you ever went into these so-called stores that's got restaurants, you would be surprised what you'll see. If you look at the dates on these items, but I mean, Ms. Botel and her, they went in to check out these machines I was talking about, but nobody else was interested in it. They don't even have none over Singers Island. And I mean, I don't mean, if this is not a really bad word, but damn, y'all look like y'all don't really care. Honestly, we done put you on the platter. Now you're gonna have to take and start spreading out your wealth. Because it's like the people over on my end say, you don't want to be in here one term, do you? Because they said it's a possibility, because they just don't like you zoning all these things and doing all this when there's no social help over on our end. And I mean, y'all think I might be bad, but if a black man don't be for his people, then he ain't no black man, and that's the way I am, and I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Dr. Philip Dukes, Bessie Brown, Ron McLean. Dr. Philip Dukes, Bessie Brown.
I don't see Mr. Dukes. Okay.
Good evening,
Good
Bessie Brown.
evening.
Oh, I'd like to say, I wasn't sure that you had a vote on the consent agenda tonight. I wasn't sure of that. And also, the agendas are changing. You have the agenda printed yesterday one way, and tonight it's different. If you're going to change the agenda, you used to do additions and deletions. Why don't we do that instead of just changing the whole agenda? You know, that's ludicrous. I mean, seriously, because that's the way you can keep up with what you're doing. That legislative update, did you all get any information on it in writing or anything? Because I'd like to have a copy of it. And I see Palm Beach Shores is going with the Sheriff Department. I'm not sure if they even entertain coming to the city of Riviera Beach. You know, I'd like to know that. And if you had anything to offer Mr. Evans. But the one thing I'd like to say is that Riviera Beach is not going to go with Palm Beach Sheriff's Office. We are not planning to go that route. And that's it, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Ron McLean, John Niehoff.
How's everyone doing tonight?
Good evening.
I'm veteran Ronald McLean off of 460 West 33rd Street. I live alone. 2 weeks ago, I went over off the building off of 13th Street to ask to have a meeting with you, sir. I never was gotten back to, no one said anything to me about it, but it's very important that I talk to you about some important issues that is going on that street, and no one wants to seem to look into it. So I really need your help, sir, to look into that for me. Please schedule a meeting with me if at your earliest convenience. But my other issue at this point is that I've been getting $200 water bills for a while now, and I've been paying them. But last month, I intentionally didn't pay it because I wanted to get somebody to look into the issue for me, and no one led me to the right place about it. So now I have last month's bill and this month's bill, $493. I live alone. There's no way I could be using that kind of water. No one has listened to me. No one has led me to the right place. I need some help. I cannot pay it. I've been paying it for a while, $200. I live by myself. There's no way that I could be using that much water. I have the bill right here. Something is wrong. Someone need to tell me something different than what's going on. $493. I live alone. There's no way.
Someone will get with you, Mr. Sherman will be getting with you. He's right there in the back, so he's back there waiting for you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John Niehoff, Evelyn Clark, Dolores Williams.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's good to see you all here, and that I could speak for a minute. I'm from Hammerhead Productions. We'll be doing the Blues and Barbecue on Singer Island in a few short weeks. I really came here to thank certainly Mayor Felder, the new city manager, Mr. Evans, the council, Dr. Patel for their great support on here, on what we're doing, Mr. Blankenship, and everybody here has been just so accommodating. I think we're gonna do something to put this city on the map. We're gonna scare Fort Lauderdale, we're gonna scare these other towns because we have a great place here. I've called it Polish the Gem, and Dr. Patel encouraged me to keep using that. And it is on the internet under Polish the Gem. We'll be going off in 2 weeks. We're gonna have the, we're gonna crown, actually Mayor Felder is gonna be crowning the king or queen of top Singer Island Riviera Beach barbecue will be awarded that day. I know Dr. Patel will not be tasting the barbecue, she's a vegetarian, but Mayor Felder will be giving the trophy and tasting that day. So we will have crown a new person. This is the trophy we'll be giving out that day. But again, I want to thank everyone on the council, everyone certainly on staff, Mr. Blankenship, for their efforts. We're working hard every day, and we're excited, and I think we're going to have a great event for everyone in the community and showcase what this city and this area is all about. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I
Yeah.
may, could I ask Mr. Nyhoff very quickly, while he has a few minutes, to just very, very briefly tell the next events that are coming up so people are aware?
Oh, excellent. Thank you, Dr. Patel. And it kind of fits in a little bit that our lineup. In November, we're going to be doing Salute the Veterans, and that will be the Food and Craft Festival, Salute the Veterans, November 8th, 9th, and 10th. And that's going to be benefiting certainly our local VFW Post 4143. We'll then go into the holiday celebration, and that there is a community donation in each of these, and that will be family services and community outreach of Riviera Beach. Then we move into January, and that will be a Race for the Cure. Then as we move into February, which I think will be our biggest event, and that will be with the Singer Island Seafood Experience, and that will be sea to shore, and that'll be cleaning up the beaches. And we're going to end with the Food and Craft Festival in March, and that'll benefit the Riviera Beach Police and Fire Departments.
And they're 3 days.
The 3 days, yes. The three, Friday night, Saturdays, and Sundays. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Evelyn Clark, Dolores Williams, Doretta Polk.
Good evening, council,
Good
city
evening.
manager, mayor. From time to time, I think when People do good things for our community. They should always be recognized and acknowledged. And I try to do that with our staff that do great things to make a difference here in Riviera Beach. Tonight, I just want to say to a few of our residents that advocate on behalf of our residents that we see you, that we hear you, that we think that you're very genuine in what you do to try to make Riviera Beach a better place to live, work, and play. And I'd like to give this Neighbor Appreciation, the Good Neighbor Award, to Mr. Lloyd Brown for community spirit, outstanding volunteerism, Riviera Beach, the best place to live, work, and play. Sir.
It needs to keep going.
All right, and he's not here, but he comes here and he's been advocating to fight against drugs, to protect our young people, and he's been asking our council, past mayor, current mayor, city manager, to help him in his endeavors. And I'd like to give this to Mr. Dr. Philip Dukes for community spirit and outstanding volunteerism, Riviera Beach, the best place to live, work, and play.
Do I get a chance?
And I'm going to say this very quickly, and I will give you my minutes. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Do that.
you can
Okay. And, you know, I've been bringing this up in regards to keeping Riviera Beach clean. I just want to say on my walk, my neighbor and my walk last night, we had to navigate a big tractor trailer, the ones that Tropical has on their property with the cab, which is about 100 feet. Who wants to wake up to this in front of your house every morning? Who wants to navigate this at night, which is what I was doing? A child could get snatched, my neighbor and I could have gotten robbed, someone could have gotten hurt. So I'm going to bring this to the council's attention that I'm going to keep doing this, but most importantly, I'm going to start putting a plan in place. So I just want you to see what we have to deal with, where this person comes to our neighborhood, doesn't live in our neighborhood, brings their rig and have somebody drop him off and picks him up at the end of the day. This vehicle is gone, but this is what I had to look at every single morning after sinking tens and thousands of dollars into my house. Would you like to wake up to this and pull your curtains back?
Thank
Neither
you,
do
Ms.
I.
Clark.
I ran out of minutes.
Yes, thank you. Who's next?
Dolores Williams, Doretta Paul. Dolores Williams.
She's coming.
To residents and to the council,
Good evening.
good evening to you all. Dolores Williams. I'd just like to say, I know what it meant by the Gold Star. My nephew, he served 20 years and a half. Then he went overseas, this special guarding for all those generals, you know, that Trump had and they left him. He took care of them over at Desert, in Kuwait. So I'm very proud of him, very proud of him. And I'm glad that the young lady came up. She's not like Trump, you know, because they had one man when he was running for election, and he was a Arab, and his son was a Gold Star, and he belittled him that he was nothing. But I'm glad that we're going to honor our Gold Star people and our soldiers here. They were talking about the school. I saw the thing, Mr. Robinson and my council, Lawson. I'm very proud of you with the mental thing, mental health. Very, very good. Dr. Robinson, she recommended. Ms. Lanier, I saw you. I saw the young lady, Tessie. I know her very well. Very proud of her, too. And I think you see the sheriff department took over Palm Beach Shore. Isn't that the city that we are supplying water to, and they're going to another police department? I'm not sure. Is that, sir?
Yes,
ma'am. Oh, okay. We're going to have to check on that, huh? I want to say something. You might say it's not agenda, but it's a public record. I want you to, Mr. Evans, you're supposed to meet with me next Tuesday, right? I'm Dolores Williams, at your secretary at the department for 9 a.m. And I want you to tell me some things. I want to tell, and then I'll bring it back to the board if I don't get the right answer. And I want to know what caused that and what happened and how could they do that. Your assistant manager not here, but I'm not sure. I hope I'm not putting out something. Oh, I thought they looked like her, but I wasn't sure. Can I ask her something?
Well,
real quick?
Ms. Williams, your public comment, you have to direct to us. And then when your time is up, if you want to speak with someone, you can.
I would like to ask her something afterwards, soon before I walk down. But I'd just like to know, again, Stony Brooks and the streets in Monroe Heights. I looked at the budget thing, Mr. Evans, what y'all was getting. I think you have enough to tear up those streets and everything that's been done to make it look like Singer Island. I was looking at your budgets and the money y'all gonna bring, the tax y'all gonna do, tear them all up and do those streets over in Monroe Heights. And definitely Stony Brooks.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Who's next?
Doretta Polk.
Good evening.
Good
My name is
evening.
Doretta Park, and I hope Mayor Felder, your wife is doing better. At the last meeting that you weren't here, and they say your wife was a little ill. I hope she's doing better. I want to just commend also Councilman Lawson. Phenomenal when you see us. That was so excellent. The children learned a lot. Myself and all the adults learned a lot. It was very moving and very touching. And I thank you. And I thank you for having the mental forum here at the city, because this helps a lot of people who needs help and could be directed to the help they need. Because we have a lot of people who have a lot of mental issues. I also want to say also you had also Mrs. Franks from Barracuda Bay, and also you, Ms. Lawson, put on a very lovely back-to-school celebration for the children and backpacks. I want to thank you all very much for that, very much, because our children do need these things. There was an issue of Attorney Ferguson stated about the schools, and I think our schools do need to have some revenue placed into them for our children. This is our future. This is our mayors to be, our managers to be, our councilmen. So whatever we can do for the children of Riviera Beach, I think we should. There was on the agenda item number 7 stating about a 10,000, no more than $10,500. Maybe we can put some of that dollars in use our schools. I really think we need to do something to our schools, because our schools will be D and F schools, not all of them, but we need to do something to help these children. And I think Parks and Recreation are doing an outstanding job for our children. And I want to commend you also, Mr. Evans. We told you about our situation at Lindsay Davis with the sidewalk. You weren't here 1 week, the next week was done. And this was several weeks that it was not even mentioned or any attention done to this for our safety, the children's safety over there. Another thing, Ms. Grimsley is doing a phenomenal job with those children. And whatever you all can also put into her program would be such a help, because she's doing a phenomenal job with those children. And I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, that completes public comments at this time.
Okay. Mr. Manager?
Madam Chair, members of the public, to speak on the presentation by the Pittman Law Group, we can definitely place that on our website, so it will be available for public consumption, and then also email it out to the board so you can share it with your constituents. The phone system, Ms. Jacobs has already sent out an email to staff to address the issues as it relates to our phone system to make sure that there's not multiple transfers that are occurring. And we can update the messaging to allow for direct access to the city manager's office and the city clerk's office. With respect to the court reporting, I have a memorandum that I have reviewed that has been furnished by the city clerk and the communications supervisor, Mr. Stevens, to talk about the possibility of closed captioning that's required to comply with ADA. And so that effectively will resolve our issue. We've gotten 3 quotes from vendors, so we will be moving forward with that here pretty quickly, and that will provide us a verbatim transcript on what occurs, and they will also be able to associate the names with the individuals and what they say. The signage throughout City Hall, we can definitely get that resolved. That's certainly very easy. The executive director position for the utility district, certainly that's something that is a high priority for us. I believe that position is currently advertised, and one of the things that is a requirement, unless waived by the board, is a residency requirement. The comment with respect to changing the name of the street, that's a public policy decision that would have to come before this board for consideration. It is my understanding that there is not a concrete policy that has ever been adopted that specifies how an entity is, or how the city is to go forward with doing that. So we can do some more research and then provide you some options and opportunities and look what other municipalities have done. I believe in the past, it hasn't been anything that is a standard policy. I think the board has just taken legislative action on that.
And actually, when we did the last 3 or 4 street namings, we did say that we would look into setting specific criteria for it so that we could be pretty uniformed in how we're naming the streets.
And I do know that there is a fiscal impact associated with that, so
yeah.
we will provide that as well for the board to consider. With respect to funding that was requested to be put into the local education system, specifically the schools here in Riviera Beach, as part of your budget discussions on Thursday as well as Monday, that can be something that the board considers if you wanted to provide funding to the schools. But also, if you wanted to do that, you know, there has to be some stipulations with regards to what the funding effectively would be utilized and how that process would work with the agreements and those kind of things. So that's something that if the board directs staff to look in and provide more research, we can do that, and we can also look at the situation at Wellington and see what specifically they're doing. We do have programs like youth empowerment that they may not have in Wellington. We do have situations that are different in our community, so we can look at some of the long-term investments we make in our own programs, because we do run the risk of, like Ms. Grimsley said, that the county funding for youth empowerment is going to go away, and that's a sizable fiscal impact. So that's something that can be addressed as part of the discussions with the board. The zoning and the conversations with regards to convenience stores, I think we need to have a comprehensive discussion on that, and that's something that you will be provided by me some opportunities for us to convene on in a setting that's more of a workshop to discuss long-term planning and zoning plans and how do we move forward to address some of the concerns that we're having with folks loitering and the activities that are happening on those particular parcels. With regards to the agenda changing, the chair has provided direction that we will make the appropriate changes here at the meeting, so that shouldn't be an issue where the agenda deviates. And with a more robust and responsive website and our communication strategies, will be able to mitigate against that. Legislative update, we are going to continue to do that every opportunity we have to inform the public about what's happening in Tallahassee. With respect to the police department at Palm Beach Shores, per the statute, the only entity that can do law enforcement outside of a municipal boundaries or inside of a municipal boundaries is the sheriff's department. So the residents of Palm Beach Shores only had one option, and that was to go with the sheriff's department. With respect to the Riviera Beach Police Department, I'm glad that question was brought up. I have not, will not, and care not to ever consider the possibility of contracting out the provision of fire service or police service or our utility services. That has been a constant rumor and misconception. I don't even know where the headquarters are for the sheriff's office. So those are our police officers, those are our firefighters, those are our employees, and we're going to take care of them and make sure they have a great place to work. The next item with respect to the utility bills, I believe Mr. Sherman met the gentleman, and I will make it a point to reach out with him. We've had some concerns from some of our residents with the new meters. The new radio read meters are giving numbers that are, in some cases, 100% more than what our customers are accustomed to paying. So we're taking a look into that to see if there is any issues on our side, but bringing back the board something to consider, because I've had a lot of conversations with regards to people getting water bills that are well over $300 or $400, and that's not sustainable. And so we've got to look at what's actually occurring with respect to either our system, if there's leaks. I did have a brief conversation with the chair about the opportunity to look at some rebate programs or programs whereby the city could assist in acquiring low-flow toilets or things that allow for less consumption of water, because your water bill is derived based on consumption. So we're looking at opportunities, what other cities have grants for fixtures to be able to reduce the consumption of water. So we're looking at that. The event on Singer Island, the beach, the barbecue event, I think that's a great event. I think there's also an opportunity, if we can make it a Jack Daniel's qualifier in subsequent years, it can be a big opportunity for the city. The photo with the trucks, we can get that photo and try to address that issue. Stony Brook, I've had conversations with the representatives concerning Stony Brook. They're almost at the final stages of closing on the loan and moving forward with the renovations on the site. There's a couple of things that they have asked of the city that I've had the opportunity to sit with legal and have a conversation, and they will be getting an email from me with regards to some things that we can do and some things that, per the existing agreement, they're going to have to comply with. So we will definitely move forward with that and hopefully see that come to fruition. The streets in Monroe Heights, under the leadership of Councilman McCoy, we've had a conversation internally about what do we do with that street project. I have told staff not to put the last layer of asphalt on that on the streets there, because we want to bring back a solution that the board consider about instead of going to the inverted crown, going back to a traditional roadway design and removing the center drains and making that go back to the drainage on the curb. So that's something that will be briefly discussed as part of your budget process on Thursday, and then more conversations during the 26th on the CIP. And we've waiting for additional information from bond counsel to provide us the information we need to move forward in such a fashion. And again, with respect to the schools, that's a conversation as to how the board chooses to proceed with how they want to handle our involvement in the education in our community. And Madam Chair, I think that concludes all the comments.
All right, thank you very much. Items tabled,
None.
regular item number 6.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, awarding the contract for professional audit services to S. Davis and Associates, PA, in an amount not to exceed $349,000 for fiscal years 2019 to 2024, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute same and provide an effective date. Madam Chair, we do have a public comment card on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
Motion to
Have a
reject.
motion. Can I have a motion to accept?
Motion to reject the RFP and the valuations.
Madam Clerk, can I have some guidance on how to deal with that?
There would have to be a second on that motion to proceed.
Second.
Okay.
Any discussion, any comments? We do have a public comment card on item number 6, Madam Chair.
Let's hear the public comment.
Bessie Brown?
Bessie Brown, I would, I see that, Councilwoman Sergeant McCoy is trying to reject this, item. I would appreciate if somebody would second it, and because in the past, I have worked here, and I know that I don't think we've ever contracted a audit for audit services for 5 years. And that's my question. That's the reason that I'm up here. I think we've done some 3 years, but 5 years is a little too much for auditing services, because then by the time everybody should be pretty much familiar with everything, and then you just get get your audit done the way you want it, not the way it should be done.
Madam Chair, that concludes public comment cards on this item.
All right. So
Chairperson Miller Anderson, a motion was made by Councilperson McCoy and seconded by Councilperson Lawson to reject staff's recommendation.
All right, so Mr. Manager or Attorney, where do we go from there? I mean, I don't know, obviously.
Well, Madam Chair, if I may?
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem with going into the explanation of it. If you so want to hear why I thought it was probably appropriate that we reject the submittals, I had some personal concerns with it. Without going into too many details, unless there's a presentation on how we came about arriving at what we did, then I don't know if I'll probably be premature in explaining why I rejected it. So, if you want to move forward with a presentation, I'm open for it from staff, but, I'm not comfortable with it. And
So we would essentially have a motion and a second, presentation is done, and then we go into discussion or vote. That,
Sure.
Correct.
okay.
Madam Chair, if I may also, with the motion that has been proffered on the table, if there can be, before the board votes on that motion, and if it does provide a little bit more clarity to the motion as to what the next steps are, because it can be interpreted different ways, so just for clarity's sake, if there can be more specifics as to how we are to proceed forward after, in the event the motion does prevail.
Okay.
Well, if you're asking me for clarification, Mr. Manager, I just want to leave it that plain and simple. Now, if you want your staff to get up, I certainly can respond to their presentation as to why I don't think it's in our best interest as a city to move forward with this. But as it stands, I'm not comfortable with going anywhere further than that, because I don't want to, we have the authority under our procurement code 16.5 to do the evaluations, and we also have the authority to outright reject any proposals or submittals. And because there is a propensity for bid protests, I just think that the process needs to be revisited and reissued, and I much rather not get into the subjective nature unless it's in response to a presentation by staff members. But as it stands now, I will say this. A lot of this information related to the auditor RFP, I've been in extensive conversations with administration, particularly and ironically, over the last 24 hours. More conversation over the last 24 hours than in the whole entire time we've been here on city council. And I've been asking for a lot of information, and there is some very much inconsistencies that I think has occurred. So without going into detail, I just think, on its surface, and even reading the backup that we've received over the last 2 days, I believe it was, regarding the state statute that provides that we can, we don't necessarily have to go through a RFP if we need to do a renewal. The resolution that provides for audit committee, just putting those things together, I think there is enough for me to feel comfortable with laying out that motion. But I don't think going forward into details as to what needs to happen, I'm willing to do. Now, if we want to have another conversation as to what happens next, I'm open for that. But relative to the submittals, I just don't think we're in a good posture.
Madam Chair?
Madam,
Who was that?
Because we have a motion on the floor to reject this entire proposal, I think that we want to, I'm requesting that we call the question. Because if it passes, then it's done. If not, we can have a discussion. So I'm asking that we call the question on this item.
Well, I thought Mr. McCoy was going to rescind his motion maybe, and then we have the presentation, or are you not wanting to do that?
So let me be clear, my motion was to reject. I moved to reject the submittals. So for the RFP.
I heard that part, but when I asked them about the rejection motion that you made, then they basically agreed and said that if we wanted to just do a motion to move forward with the presentation, then that would require you to rescind your original motion so that we could accept it, so they can do the presentation, and then if we wanted to vote it down or postpone it, or
Not
you
rescinding,
didn't want to do
Madam
any
Chair.
of that?
No, ma'am.
Okay, all right.
Councilperson Lawson?
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier?
No.
Councilperson McCoy?
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel?
No.
Chairperson Miller Anderson?
Yes.
That motion is approved with Councilpersons Lanier and Botel dissenting.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
can I be recognized for another motion?
Yes.
I move that we redirect staff to reissue, well, first of all, I'm sorry, to organize the audit committee. And I ask that we move forward with the renewal as provided for under section 218.391 of the statutes that allows for us to do a renewal on at least, I want to say, a one-year contract, and then we come back and reissue the RFP within 30 days.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a question. So, Mr. Evans, with the rejection of this, where does that put us? And the initial, in the follow-up motion?
in the event that the board is to proceed forward with entering into a contract to extend, Ms. Nguyen, I would have to defer to legal with respect to if we are extending the contract versus the compliance with the new statute. Does it require us to go through the entire process again because the statute has changed, or do we have the ability to enter into a one-year contract? Because that determines the approach staff would take.
When you refer to the statute change, Mr. Evans, you're referring to the audit committee?
That is correct.
We would still, at this point, we would have to go under the new amendment to the statute as it relates to forming the audit committee, because we would be starting the process over, and the statute took effect July 1.
So would we be prohibited from entering into a one-year extension on the contract, or?
You could extend that contract.
Okay. So in the event that the board chooses to extend the contract, that would still cover us for the purposes of being prepared to complete our financial audit, and then we would have to comply with the statute to go through the competitive solicitation process again.
Yeah, I had some issues as well, because I know there were some things that just didn't add up, and there were some issues with this. So I would be in favor of the motion as well. And did you have any comments?
Yes, Madam
Go
Chair.
ahead.
I would really like to hear what the manager has to say and what Mr. Sherman and Mr. Little have to say about this. I'm anxious to know what their opinion is and why this was put before us. So I'd like to hear the presentation. Even though it's been voted down, I'd like to have that information.
Madam Chair, in keeping with the motion that has been executed and the direction the board has taken, I think it would be inappropriate for us to communicate as we may stand. We have to appoint individuals on the committee and go through this process again. So I would prefer to allow for us to bring you the pathway forward versus discuss what has just occurred since the board has already officially acted.
Okay. All right. Did anyone else have any questions?
Yes, I wanted to be clear about the motion that I disagreed with. I want to say that because of the past councils and what has happened previous to us, I think it would be best for us to move forward with a new auditing company. I think it would be best for us to ensure that we have an audit for our departments and for the city, given the history of the city. And to move forward, not to run it down, but to expeditiously make sure that we have the ability to audit our departments, especially certain departments that have had issues before. And to wait for another year with the same auditor, I'm having some pause for that.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
The reason that I agreed with this actual motion is because we're actually going to be going forward with a new direction with an audit committee. So being that the RFP was put out prior to the regulations passing, I want to make sure that when we select our new audit committee, it's based upon the new regulations that have been passed underneath the audit committee versus what we've been doing as status quo. So if we wait this time frame for this audit committee to be established, the new organization that comes in will be actually underneath this audit committee.
Anyone else? All right, Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Lawson.
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier.
No.
Councilperson McCoy.
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel. Chairperson Miller Anderson.
Yes.
That motion is approved with Councilperson Lanier dissenting.
Item number 7.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, authorizing additional payments in an amount not to exceed $10,500 for consultant and professional services with On Point Consulting Group LLC to provide public information consulting services, authorizing the Director of Finance and Administrative Services to pay for these services from account number 101-201-015-31000 and providing an effective date. Madam Chair, we do have a public comment card on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
Move to table, Madam Chair.
Do we have a second? Do we have a second? Dies for lack of a second. All right, the table died. So
Correct.
do we have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Mr. Manager.
Madam Chair, this item before you is to seek approval from the board to proceed forward in an amount not to exceed $10,500 for consulting services from On Point Consulting. This merely allows for us to finish out the remainder of the fiscal year with this firm. There is monies that have exceeded the contractual limits as stipulated, and so we're asking for authorization to cure the balance owed to take us to the end of the fiscal year, and then the relationship will not be the same. We will have a situation where law enforcement will be the on-camera personality, and it would be sworn personnel that would be delivering the communications to the public. So this is just allowing for the chief and staff to be able to prepare for the transition that will occur effective with the new budget. And staff recommends approval, and myself and Chief Rozier are here to answer any questions.
All right, do we have public comments?
Bonnie Larson.
Bonnie Larson, I'm glad to hear
Good
you say
evening.
that the police, good evening. I'm glad to hear you say that the police will now be doing our public relations. I know a lot of cities do that, and it just looks very authentic when they do it. I was surprised at this contract. I've only read the first page, so bear with me here. But it's a contract, for those who don't know, it's for On Point Consulting Group, which is Ms. Roseanne Brown, from October 2018 to September 2019. The total of the contract is for $25,000 for that 1 year period. What really surprised me was that our previous interim city manager, and that would be Karen Hoskins, signed this contract because it says here that the city's representative during the performance of the contract, which goes through September 30th of this year, the representative shall be Clarence D. Williams. Why would she have done that knowing he was going to resign or retire any moment? I don't understand that. Why she would have done that. And it says here that services, all right. The opinion for renewal will be exercised on, well, this is kind of moot now because now you're telling me the police are going to be doing it. So my other points are rather moot here. But my question is, all right, I still have one question though. This contract was for $25,000 and now they're asking for $10,500. Doesn't our budget year end in September? So if the whole contract was for $25,000, why would we think we need another $10,500 to go from now until the end of September? That to me doesn't make any sense. And also, who has been approving these payments and things? Again, moot point, okay. And I hope to get more information when the police do it. You know, if they say, a lot of times they come on it, and what the media does, they come here to the facility and they find whoever they can find to talk about the issue. So, you know, it is gonna be good that the police do it, have the authority to do that. What I would like to see the police do is give more exact information than we've been getting, because they say, in the 3100 block of Avenue XYZ, a murder took place. Well, I'd kind of like to know if that's the guy next to me, or if it's, I'd like to know the exact address, you know, when a problem has occurred. I'd like to know what's happening on my street. The other day, a lot of policemen were up right at the corner of my street, and I was outside, and they were bending down, hiding, and their guns were drawn. I'd kind of like to know what was going on, you know? So hopefully we'll get more information, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any questions or comments from the board? All right.
Madam Chair, that's exactly what I was concerned with. Can you tell me, are we looking to expend, or are we in arrears on something that we owe as an invoice? Because I don't understand how you can use that kind of money with just over about 40 days or so, 30 days.
We have overextended the contract. The chief came to me and said that during the IT issue, Ms. Brown did put in more hours than anticipated, and so there is monies owed that is well above that $25,000 threshold. So that's why I've asked the chief, how much time and how much money do we need to get us to the end of the fiscal year to make sure that there's no money owed when the contract is severed September 30th. And that was the number that was provided by the law enforcement department. And I believe that there's amount owed well over, I think, $2,500 as it stands right now. Now, I don't anticipate us expending it all, but there is that number was provided by the police department.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And also, just going forward, we've had this issue in the past where when contracts, they go over and then come to us for money after the fact, instead of making sure they come to us before it runs out, if that is needed. So just kind of keep that in mind as well.
Absolutely.
All right, anyone else? Do we still have a contract manager?
That position is vacant.
Okay, all right. All righty,
Madam
yes.
No, I just wanted to say that with the young lady, Roseanne Brown, who came to the chambers that night doing the internet or the hacking, the insurance company, of course, had our hands tied in terms of us not being able to say anything to the public about it. But with her coming to the chambers and working with city administration to inform us what was happening and to give us more, and the public, a clearer information about that, I thought was very good, given the fact that we could not say anything ourselves.
All right.
Councilperson Lawson?
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier?
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy?
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel?
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Item number 8,
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, accepting the Victims of Crime Act VOCA grant number VOCA 2019, City of Riviera Beach, POL 00264, funding for the Victim Advocate Program, awarded funds not to exceed $232,880 from October 1st, 2019 through September 30th, 2020, authorizing and approving the additional position of a second full-time victim advocate to continue with crisis response services, focusing on areas of homicide, domestic violence, child deaths, and elderly victimization, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a certificate of acceptance of the grant award, authorizing the director of finance and administrative services to set up the budget and fund 125 and providing for an effective date.
we have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right.
Madam Chair, we do not have any public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
All right, Mr. Manager.
Madam Chair, if I can have Interim Police Chief Mr. Spencer Rozier make this presentation.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
How you doing? As she just said, this is to fund our Victim Advocate Program. We have Dr. Marshall in the back, who is the manager of that unit. They have done a great job in assisting the police department. They've been out to numerous of our crime scenes to help when we have, of course, upset residents and family members. There are our intermediate group to help resolve their issues, comfort them, and put them in touch with the services that they need in their time of grief and sorrow. So they've done a great job with that. And this funding will help, as she said, fund an additional full-time person for that unit, and also 2 part-time persons, and also cover their operating expenses and training that they would need through the year. Again, these are funds that will be drawn down on as they use them. So we're asking for your approval to keep that going. And we've had this program going for the last 13 years, and they've assisted over 8,500 residents over those 13 years, I believe, right? 13 years.
All right, any questions, comments from
Madam
the
Chair,
board?
I have a question, Madam Chair. A couple of months ago, we had a presentation by a group that had been doing a program that had been originated, I think it was in Las Vegas, if I'm not mistaken. And it was brought to us by the city of West Palm Beach.
Right.
And it entailed having volunteers go in and assist family members who had been involved in murders and so on. Are we still on track to start that, and how does it relate, if at all, to this?
Yeah, it's called the RECAP program.
That's it, recap.
And Dr. Marshall volunteers his time with that unit and has spearheaded, along with Sergeant Menard and our COP unit. And they're the ones who actually went out to Vegas and brought this program back to our city. And it already has been a big benefit, and it will continue to be a benefit to the citizens of Riviera Beach.
So we have started it?
Yes, we
Oh,
have.
good.
Yes.
Any other questions, comments?
Yes, Madam Chair. I've actually spoke to the doctor about this recap program, and something that they're also doing in West Palm, and we're actually the pilot program. I really want to see that in addition to this grant, we could try to look to see where in the budget we could provide additional funding. So if we have the ability to support and continue to fund this program, I want to see if we can find that. And while we have Chief Rozier up here as well, I had an incident recently, Chief, with the T. Leroy Jefferson Medical Society. They had an event, and some items were stolen from the actual Boys and Girls Club. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because I've spoke to the organization, and the organization was very disappointed that we do not have the support that they need to try to recoup these items that were stolen. So if it's something that we could possibly reach out to them, I know that you have some of your detectives, there was a police report filed, but if you could just kind of provide some additional support, because I want them to come back to the city and do this event here. They're just kind of nervous because they haven't had it here in 6 years, and the first year they have it, they have an incident. So I want to definitely follow back up with them and see as much support as possible we can give to them. And then also with the department that we have, I want to see if we could work with Mr. Evans. It's an investigate property crimes. I think we have a part-time position that's being volunteered right now. I want to see if we could possibly find some funding to actually make that a part-time position for a detective within that department, because I know that they've recouped a lot of money through Cheney Brothers, through different organizations where they recoup stolen items as well. So that's something I was going to talk about in the comments, but since you're up here now, I just wanted to address it.
Well, could I ask you a question?
Please,
On the
Chief
first incident you were referring to.
Yes, sir.
They made a police report
Yes,
and
sir.
obtained a case number for
Yes, sir.
it? And what's the issue? They felt like there wasn't any follow-up done on it?
Yeah, they felt like they weren't getting enough support. I know that they had a detective that was working on it throughout the week. I'm not sure how valid or true it is, but somebody told them that they didn't have enough time to research, and I said that couldn't have been what was said. It was probably just something else, but
Okay.
I just wanted to just follow up with that as well. And just to see what we can do, because even if we have to take it out of my discretionary funds to reimburse that tent that was stolen, it was almost $9,000 worth of items, a tent and a industrial blower. So I want to see what we can do, because that event that they hosted was amazing. Myself and a few of the other council members were there, and I definitely want to make sure that they come back next year.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
All right,
And
then.
and if I could, you mentioned about the part-time
Yes.
property crime investigator. I just want to give that particular detective a lot of credit.
Absolutely.
He's a retiree from the city of Riviera Beach, Emory Davis. And right now, he works in a volunteer capacity in that program. And he has requested if there was any kind of part-time position we could provide to him, he would be satisfied with that. He has done a tremendous job with us on a part-time basis. He's helped resolve a lot of property crime that have occurred in the city, and he's a valuable member of our team, and we would like to try to keep him if possible.
From my, Madam Chair, sorry. From my understanding, he's recouped over $600,000 worth of items in the city from things that have been stolen from different businesses and individuals and residents. So I definitely want to try to implement that, even if it's on a part-time basis, because that would be an amazing asset to us.
Madam Chair, that's something certainly that can be discussed as part of tomorrow's budget session when the police department does present.
Right.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I want to ask, Chief, you said Aldred was a volunteer?
He's currently a volunteer with us now.
Oh, yeah? And I'd like to make not a motion, but.
Go ahead and make it. We wanna.
You know, I actually got a chance to sit down with him and see the whole recap program.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you was asking about the detective, Emory Marshall. You're talking about Dr. Marshall. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay.
He's a volunteer?
No, he's actually under the grant
Okay.
that we're trying to.
He's
do.
getting paid.
He's getting paid. Because you said volunteer, I wanted to make sure, because the work I seen him do, and I'm 100% behind recap. I believe that program is going to be very beneficial to our community. So shout out to you and your team for putting that together. And if council, you have not seen it, I ask you to go to the port and let him break down just that whole program. I was very much pleased. As I ran on community policing, it's something that we don't have to try to do. They already got the program. We just need to get behind it and stand behind it.
All right. Anyone else? Thank you so much. All right.
Councilperson Lawson?
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier?
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy?
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel?
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
All right, discussion and deliberation. Board appointments, discussion by city manager.
Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity to work with the CRA on the opportunity to move forward with recognizing our military personnel and recognizing those that have lost family members and Gold Star families. If you leave the chambers and you go downstairs and you walk towards the city clerk's office, you'll see that there was a young lady that was a resident of Riviera Beach that graduated from Suncoast High School. That was one of the first individuals that was lost in combat back in Desert Storm, I believe. And sometimes I think we forget those that have paid the ultimate sacrifice. So as we move forward with the opportunity to recognize Gold Star families and move forward with a marker or a memorial that recognizes our veterans in our community, certainly we want to make sure that we reach out to the family of that young lady and see if there's some type of way we as a board can do a proclamation or something that was done to recognize her sacrifice that she made for this great nation. So thank you for the leadership on this board to recognize the importance of honoring our military families and our veterans, and look forward to having a ceremony that's well attended and reaching out to our partners in the VA to bring this project to fruition. So that concludes my comments.
All right. City attorney,
No comments, Madam Chair.
city council committee reports. Statements by the mayor and city council. We'll start with Councilman Lawson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say, residents, your council had an amazing time this past weekend at the League of Cities. We did a lot of learning. The process was amazing. I definitely want to try to make sure that the council is attending all of the conferences, because instead of just staying here within the city, we're going around into other municipalities throughout the state, throughout the world, to allow for us to see what we can bring to Riviera Beach and how we can take some of the good from other municipalities. So definitely we were able to really work with some of the other cities and see what's actually the best process for our city. So thank you again. The symposium we had yesterday, I want to continue to grow that as a mental health in the minority community. It was held right here in the chambers. Thank you, Ms. Polk. I appreciate the recognition, but I definitely don't do this for the recognition. I do this for the understanding that we need to keep building this program and keep growing this within the minority community. Mental health is under addressed within our community. So if we don't focus on it right now, it's going to continue to destroy and kill our community. So our next one is actually September 17th. We're going to be talking about schizophrenia as well, and suicide. So that'll be the next part of the 4-part series that we're doing in a continuation. So again, council, thank you, colleagues. Riviera Beach, have a good night.
One thing, we need to address the meetings issues, Mr. Mayor, Manager.
Thank you for the promotion. Well, as my first active mayor, let's see if my board would entertain a motion for us to schedule a meeting for Monday budget workshop on the 26th, and immediately following a special meeting to discuss the healthcare options that we have worked through.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I wanted to add, I was gonna do this at my comments, but I wanted to add, Mr. Manager, do you think it's time enough to have our audit committee selection process placed on that agenda, or do we need more time?
If you allow for me to get a little bit more time so I can sit down with the attorney, but I can get it on your first.
No. Take as much time as you need. I just, that's why I was reserving the opportunity to, before we set the agenda in the event that we needed to bring back on Monday, possibly.
We can always add, though.
Yeah, we can, but no, he needs more time because there's new legislation that requires us to understand exactly what those parameters are on selecting an audit committee. So that's why I wanted to reserve that, setting that agenda until later in the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, you finished with what you needed for?
So
Motion.
moved.
Okay, second?
But we just normally announce, right? We don't need to vote on
I
it
need a motion to,
to set the agenda?
to authorize me to notice the meeting. Other than that, I would need to get a letter.
I moved to set the agenda based on everything the manager said.
All right, Madam Clerk?
I need a second for that.
She got it,
Second.
Right here.
Hotel?
No, Botel seconded.
Okay, thank you very kindly. You all
You
talk
over
low,
there
so I can't
eating, you
hear.
can't hear.
That could be true too. Councilperson Lawson.
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier.
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy.
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel.
Yes.
Chairperson Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
All right, back to council comments, Councilwoman Lanier.
My colleagues went to Orlando for the League of Cities conference, and I was not in attendance because I was here with the Mayor of Tallahassee, Andrew Gillum, our city manager, and the teachers of Riviera Beach. We wanted to welcome the teachers, we wanted to give them a good send-off for the school year, and we wanted to let them know that we wanted to be involved in the lives of the children here in the city of Riviera Beach. We wanted to let them know that not only is the school board required to, help them, but we are here as well as not just the city council, but as the residents of the city of Riviera Beach to support our teachers and to support our educators and to support our children. So that's the reason why I wasn't in Orlando. Second of all, I wanted to, on a more serious note, when we talk about audits tonight, I also want to talk about the fact that on Monday, we're going to have Monday or one day next week, we're going to have some conversations about our health insurance. And during the time of the campaign, we talked about this $1.2 million that never was even spoken to in terms of what happened to it. Are we going to recoup our money back from who we pay for? I really need to get some answers about, we're struggling trying to decide to try and cut money to get insurance for our employees when we still have not addressed the 1.2 million that was just vanished in the midair. We have, paying for residents or paying for employees who no longer work here, paying for an employee who was deceased. I just really want to know what happened to that money. I want to know how we're going to recoup that money. And I understand some of it was paid by the insurance company, but I think the council and the public has a right to know and get a report on the outcome of that $1.2 million in terms of insurance. Those are my comments.
I know several months ago, who's in HR? What is his name? Mr. Not Pierre. Stephen. Yeah. He did say, I think we had about $400,000 was recouped, and mainly that was because of duplicated names. But the ones that were on there and were paid for, and we did not inform them, it sounds to me like that was just going to be a loss because it was our fault that it wasn't done. I haven't heard of anything since then, and that was before, that was maybe February or
I
March.
think I heard something like that, but I wanted to be able to get, for lack of a better term, a final report on
Right,
that.
right.
That
And
the
that's what I was
public
gonna
needs
say.
to know.
We haven't had any
Yeah.
updates since around February or March, so.
Madam Councilwoman, we can add that onto the agenda on Monday and give you an update, and then what steps we have taken to make sure that doesn't occur again as well.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Councilman McCoy.
Nothing, Madam Chair.
Councilwoman Botel. Let's just bask in this for a moment. You didn't want to talk about your Florida League experience?
No,
Okay.
I don't. Thank
All
you.
right.
I appreciate
Madam-
it.
I'll take his time.
Madam Chair, can I take his time?
I know.
I first want to let people
Wait,
know.
I reclaim my time.
Oh,
Let me have this back.
My office cell phone has not been functioning, so please, if you've tried to leave me messages, they're gone.
Did
It's
you
not
drop
that
it
I'm- No,
in the
I did
water?
not drop it in the ocean. I have it in my possession, but it's not functioning. And that number is the 762-5760, so please do not think that I'm neglecting to return my phone calls. IT is working on it. The city manager and I presented at the ERM offices the grant application last week, and it was ranked with others. It will be put before the legislature for potential funding. There was another project very similar to ours that was very highly ranked, so we hope one of them at least will be funded. I have been working on the JFK Career Awareness After-School Program, had a very good meeting with the principal and with Tropical Shipping. We will be doing monthly meetings with the students at JFK. The first 3 Tuesdays of the month, someone from a business organization such as Tropical, which is the one that's doing October, will be presenting to the students what's it like to work at Tropical, how much you can make, and so on. The 4th Tuesday, the kids will be taking a trip to Tropical to see what it looks like there, how does that place operate. And the night after that, we'll be having a dinner for the parents and for the high school so that those 8th graders know that if they're enticed by potential of working in logistics, they can go to that particular high school and get that kind of an experience, and the college will be there as well. So I'm happy about that. We have been working also with Palm Beach State College to deliver, with the Workforce Development Task Force, to deliver coursework right here in Riviera Beach. We had a meeting also this past week with Ava Parker, who's the provost at the Palm Beach Gardens campus, and they will be delivering at least 2 certificate-bearing courses. So they're 12-credit courses, and you walk away with a certificate from Palm Beach State College. One will definitely be the business specialist certificate. The other will either be entrepreneurship or an IT certificate. We're going to determine that. We'll be having another Floratech job fair, if you will, tomorrow from 11 to 2 at the marina. People can come in, get the job applications, and fill them out, and we'll deliver them to the Floratech people. The last thing I have is that we've been working closely with Stony Brook because, as you may remember, they will be transitioning. The folks who are going to be having their homes renovated will be moving to a site right there at the Stony Brook property, which sort of will resemble a transition hotel. And they've been asking for donations of furniture. So if anyone has any good furniture, slightly used, gently used furniture to donate, please let me know. Don't call my cell phone. Try my office number, 845-3683, so that we can pick that furniture up. Stony Brook has a truck, and they'll pick it up because they're looking for nice furniture. They're buying a lot of it, but we'd like to help supply some extra nice things for them. That's it. Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes, want to announce we will be having our employee appreciation from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Ocean Mall. Saturday, all employees come out. We're going to have a great time, kickball, volleyball. We're going to do some raffles. So just come out. We just want to show our appreciation for you. Also, Mr. Evans is having a birthday on the 25th. He won't be there on the 24th. So I just want to say happy birthday, Mr. Evans.
Not 40 yet, not 40 yet. One more year.
And also, just to address Attorney Ferguson about really being involved in our schools, I do have a passion, and I appreciate the work Dr. Botel is doing. Was able to adopt Kennedy Monday. So I do want to be very involved, and with some of the monies I'm going to have, I'm going to earmark it to Kennedy. I do want to meet with just the men of this board to address some of the issues that our kids are facing, whether in elementary school or middle school, and we have a big problem with single parenthood. A lot of these kids are going to school without a father figure, so I would like this board to create something where we can produce men that we are going out being mentors to these young men. I think that sometimes we just get caught up with our own kids, and we miss the point, or we blame the parents when the kid doesn't have a say-so. And if we are really going to make an impact, we just can't throw money at it. We also have to throw our time at it. And so I do want to create something with this board to say we can have a male presence, and the male up here and the males that are in our community can be a good mentor to our young men and women and young girls. So I'll be putting that together. Thank you.
All right, and I only wanted to just see if the board would be willing to do a presentation from our sessions that we attended at Florida League of Cities, since we did cover quite a bit of information by everyone attending different sessions. Maybe during the September 18th meeting, if we could put it on the agenda presentation, and we can just kind of. Yes, please do yours, yes. We did send a video. I know you were here in the flesh, but we sent the video. We felt that we wanted them to know we supported them too, but we were not able to be there. And we did make sure we sent that. Also, the youth empowerment, we had a couple kids that did attend for the youth council. If we can have Ms. Valerie or Mr. Javon kind of give a little update as to what they learned, because I know the coordinator was in a session all day as well. So maybe they can just give us a little update as to what they learned while they were there. And and I think that is it. We stand adjourned.